Good afternoon. This workshop meeting of the Socorro ISD Board of Trustees will come to order. The date is Monday, June 3rd, 2024, and the time is 5:31. We've confirmed a quorum, so we'll proceed. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. Flag of the United States of America. You. Join us in the pledge, I meant to say. All right, we continue with public comment. There are no speakers signed up, so we'll continue with the board workshop. Mr. Vasquez, you want to provide some directions maybe, or Ms. Bettis?
Yes, so thank you all, President Nahara, members of the board. Tonight we are going to be having a board workshop. We've been working with our conservators to develop a format. In a bit, Dr. Hinojosa will be coming up to share his activity, followed by Andrew Kim after that. But we are going to start off with Vicki Perez, our CFO, who's going to be sharing, kind of setting the table for us in terms of what we're looking at with our budget for the coming year.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez. President Nahara, members of the board, my name is Vicki Perez, Chief Financial Officer. This evening, we will be doing a budget workshop. Now, I'm going to go over the agenda just so we have an idea of where the direction is going. We will go over the current status of the district, where we are with enrollment and ADA, tax, property values. We will have a discussion with the demographic study.
We're not getting the display up here.
Excuse me?
We're not seeing the slides.
Okay. We can wait a bit.
There we go.
Great. We will have a conversation with our demographer, the external demographer, who will give us an update on the second part of the demography study that was originally sent out in early May. And so we want to make sure that that's presented as well. We will have an update on the healthcare from Mr. Mario Carmona. We will discuss the priorities activity with Dr. Hinojosa. We will recess for a little bit, work on the budget training activity with Mr. Kim, and we will discuss a timeline if a VATRE is something that is discussed. At the end, we will have some time to go over any discussions, comments, questions, and really I do hope you do have questions for us because that will help the community as well as yourself to have a greater understanding of what we're doing. So please, as we're going through, write your questions down. Don't be afraid to stop us, and we'll help you as much as we possibly can. So for the current budget status, please understand that these are current years, not projected years, and we are going over what we know as of right now. So our property values, as presented before, are currently at $17.1 billion. That is not including the appeals, or that is not the final. That one will come out on July 25th. Our enrollment in our ADA currently is at 47,332 for enrollment. In the ADA, we are going to use for the next year is 42,501. That is considering our 0.5% of increase on attendance, as well as 0.75 decrease in enrollment as per our demographer. And he will have more information on that as well. Along with that is the last 5 years of information. This is just a visual representation of what our revenues have been compared to our expenses, and these are actual numbers. So our revenue is in orange, and our expenses are in yellow. From 2017, we have increased from $350 million to upwards of $475 million. This is another visual representation of what each object group is. And by object group, I mean payroll expenses, contracted services, supplies, miscellaneous, and debt service. And as you can see, the one in the back is the largest one. That is our payroll budget expenses, and that's 6,100. And I will close up on it. As you can see, the other object groups are very minimal. Close up, our payroll expenses in 2017 in correlation with the ADA in that year. The ADA was 42,887, and again, ADA is average daily attendance, which is what we get paid off of. As you know, that there are currently some lobbying towards getting funded by enrollment as opposed to ADA, because we still have to prepare for them whether the students are here or not. So the increase of payroll expenses has gone from 300 million with 42,887 of ADA, and the payroll is now closer to the 400 million with 42,919 ADA. Some fund balance history. When you're looking at these numbers, this was presented during our audit, just to refresh you. These are in millions. Our current 2023 fund balance is at 97 million. That includes everything. So the unassigned is 73 million, and unassigned means that that is what we have to maintain our district if we had to shut down, and that would be a total of 56 days. That's the number on the bottom. The 24 million on the top is assigned fund balance, committed fund balance. It could be for inventories and all the other stuff that we can't touch, including construction. And at this time, does anybody have any questions about the information that was presented? This is just basic laying the ground foundation information. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to demographic and projections? Great. At this time, I'd like to invite Justin with Cooperative Strategies. Justin, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Pardon me.
everybody can see him, okay?
And I'm gonna share my screen and this presentation. Nice to be with you all tonight. I'm going to be presenting information, as was mentioned, regarding not only the enrollment projections, but also the student potential analysis that we prepared for the district. And like Ms. Perez mentioned, please, if there's questions along the way, I look forward to answering those. So enrollment projections for the Socorro Independent School District were developed using the cohort survival method, and we'll talk a little bit more about that methodology on the next slide. The direct inputs that are included in that are 10 years of historical enrollment by grade, by year, and by boundary. And it also includes historical resident live birth counts. Additionally, although these are not direct inputs, we reviewed the historical building permit activity within the district and also census data.
Mr. Rich?
Yeah.
We see that you have a colleague online, Rose Konuski? Or is that later?
That is not,
okay.
I believe that's later. That is not my colleague.
Okay, just we can see someone else on the screen. I wanted clarification, so thank you, sir. Understand.
You're welcome. Yes. But I look forward to her and what she has to share as well. So the cohort survival method, this is a widely used and accepted methodology that is used to project K through 12 enrollment. The methodology uses historical live birth data and also historical student enrollment in order to age a known population or to matriculate students grade by grade, year after year. The percentage of students who move from grade to grade year after year, this is referred to as the survival ratio. We analyze those in order to determine the proper projection ratio and then apply that to both current and future enrollment in order to develop the projections. So the cohort survival method inherently considers a great number of different micro trends that are happening within the district. That could include things like migration in and out, housing, dropout levels, transfers to and from charter and private schools, open enrollment policies that are happening, and so on and so forth. It's important to note that the methodology does not assume changes in policies or program offerings. We're looking backwards, so looking at those trends assumes a certain amount of continuity. What has been done before will be similar to what happens in the future. It also doesn't consider things like future changes in housing and migration patterns. So the resident live birth counts, this is based on the zip code of residence of the mother, were used for this projection. And those resident live birth counts are used in order to project kindergarten enrollment 5 years later. Those actual live birth counts are available through 2022, and those are used to project kindergarten enrollment through school year 2027-28. So beyond 2027-28, we use a weighted average of the last 5 years of those birth counts, and those are used to project kindergarten through 2033-34. So please note, when I presented before and the actual resident live birth counts that we used, those were only available through 2021. But as you can see in the graph, we've updated that with the 2022 actual birth counts. And it shows a trend of increasing birth counts, which then results in a higher overall kindergarten projection than what we previously presented. In terms of projected enrollment over the next 10 years, enrollment's projected to decrease by 1,572 students, 47,306 in the current year, but that will drop to 45,734 students in 2033-34. The shading, just so you understand on the table, it's used as a visual aid in order to identify the larger class sizes. Those are indicated in red, as opposed to the smaller class sizes, which are indicated in blue. And then the darker the color, the more pronounced that trend is relative to the other data in the table. When we take the historical enrollment and put that next to the projected enrollment, it helps to illustrate the larger trend of what the district's experienced over the last 10 years and what's projected over the next 10 years. Similarly, we're using that same conditional formatting where we've shaded those cells in order to see in the darker red cells, that's where we have larger class sizes, and then the darker blue cells, smaller class sizes that are moving through the grades year after year. Resident live birth counts in smaller cohorts since 2020-21, like if you look at the kindergarten class sizes, for instance, that's what's driving the enrollment decrease. And then factors to consider regarding the enrollment projections, there's any number of factors, and we've listed them here. There are so many different things that may impact this going forward. So because of that, we recommend that enrollment projections should be reviewed regularly. In many cases, annually is helpful. And then have the projections updated as appropriate. As enrollment trends shift and as there's new information regarding actual live birth counts, those have very meaningful impacts on the enrollment projections, and so they should be updated with that information. COVID-19 is a great example. That introduced an unforeseen level of volatility, not just for your district, but obviously nationwide. And we saw that in the subsequent survival ratios where, again, the data was more volatile. And since those survival ratios are still normalizing, and again, they have a major impact on the projections, these ratios should be monitored really closely over the next few years to see if there's new trends that are being established. In the following slides, I'm going to present information related to the student potential analysis that we prepared for the district, and that's a type of housing study that we prepare. So the student potential analysis was developed for Socorro using student yields. Student yields are the ratio of students divided by housing units. We have a fancy graphic there that shows the number of students per home, and when we total up all the homes and divide that by the number of students, that's how we get our student yields. So for example, if there's 5 students in a 10-home community, the student yield would be 0.5 students per unit, or 1 student for every 2 homes. And the table on this slide on the left represents the student yields that we calculated by the age of single-family homes and the assessed values of those homes within the district. Again, these cells, we've used that conditional formatting in order to show the relative highs and lows in the data. The green cells indicate lower student yields, while the red cells indicate higher student yields, and then the yellows and oranges are in between. The column on the far right shows the overall student yield by the age of home. So what you'll see in that far right column and also in the yield model to the right is that there is a period where student yields increase over the first few years of the life of a home. Those stabilize and then they start to drop. If you looked up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see 0.47. That is the student yield, the average student yield overall. That's the mature yield that we're referring to of 0.47. On the following slide, we mapped out the existing housing of the district, and those are color coded here. We have single family shown in green, apartments shown in pink, townhomes are shown in blue. We have mobile home parks or RV parks, those are in purple, and then senior housing is shown in dark gray. What you'll see here in the table on the left is the number of units and the number of students and the corresponding student yield when we make that calculation. That student yield, it's important to note, is for grades K through 12. On this slide, we have information regarding future developments and the number of housing units within each attendance boundary for the district's elementary schools. So it shows the number of apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. In the columns to the right of those total housing units, we've calculated the number of students, what we call the maximum enrollment. And again, that is listed by elementary school boundary. And then the mature enrollment, once those student yields have sort of normalized and gone through their increase, their peak or plateau, and then as they start to decline and mature. On the following slide, we have the same information in terms of the map on the right. Excuse me. However, we have that information shown by middle and high school boundary. Again, it's the same information that's shown, but instead aggregated by the middle and high school boundaries. Again, we've applied those district-wide yields to each one of those developments to identify maximum enrollment, the mature enrollment, and that's displayed in the table. So the student potential analysis doesn't just look at active or those approved developments that have a relatively short timeline. We also consider the land that could be developed in the future, and we would refer to this as a build-out study. So we reviewed zoning information using land that is either already zoned for residential or if it's zoned for agriculture. Oftentimes that could be rezoned in the future. This is the kind of cycle that we see in other communities. That agricultural land could then be rezoned as residential. So the map on the left shows the current zoning within the district. The chart in the center shows the acreage and percentages, how that breaks down in terms of total acreage and each land use. And then the map on the right shows the tracts of land that, while they're not currently zoned for residential, it could be residential development in the future. So there's, based on our calculations and our analysis, there's about just shy of 8,000 acres of undeveloped land that could be used for housing in the future. And then there's about 2,100 acres of that, those parcels of land, again on the map on the right, which we consider to have a high potential for development. There is a lot of potential for development within your district boundaries over the long term. Just to note, those red, those that we've identified in red in that map on the right, those are tracts of land where they are already owned by a developer or holding company, and that's why they have been identified as higher potential versus those that are shown in blue, where it would take, again, rezoning and an investor to then purchase that land to be developed in the future. So when we take all of that information and put it together, we have this chart, which is showing a number of different things. The three main categories that I will point you to are shown on the right-hand side. The very bottom layers are the existing housing. Those in the middle are those developments that we've identified and are currently developing. And then the future development is those that aren't currently approved, and those that have potential based on the fact that they're owned by a holding company like we identified, but also those that could be rezoned from agriculture to residential in the future. So this particular chart is showing the build-out scenario where 1,000 single-family homes and 250 multifamily units would be constructed per year. We've done we've done 4 different potential build-out scenarios, and those are included in the report for reference. The green area on the bottom, that's showing enrollment from existing single-family homes. And what it shows us is that when we take those single-family homes, we consider the age of those homes, and then we put it into the yield model. What that shows us is that over time, we will start to see less students from home as they start to mature, as they hit that mature yield factor. And then right above that, there is a pink layer here, kind of the darker pink color. That's the enrollment from apartments. And because apartments have relatively less change in student yields over time, there tends to be similar demographics of families that move in and move out, and so those student yields tend to be more constant. That layer there, again, in dark pink, shows that enrollment that comes from apartments. There's a very thin blue line that's hard to make out on this graph that represents students from townhomes. And then there is a purple line, or a dark purple line right above that, that shows the number of students that come from mobile home parks. Now this lighter green color, this represents the students that are projected to come from those single family developments that are in the active development phase or are approved and likely to be built in the near future. Those are the number of students. You'll see that starts out smaller, but starts to grow over time. And then it starts to shrink again as those homes are projected to mature and hit their mature enrollment. And then the pink line above that represents the developing multifamily homes or units, and that's shown there. There's a dark black line. This is the number of students that are coming from outside of the district, and so we've included that as an item here. And then those two blue shades represent both the high potential vacant land that could be developed in the future, and then the light blue vacant land, which is not as likely to develop. However, we've included that here again to estimate at build out if every piece of land was developed, what that might look like. I think the main observation for me is this model, this student potential analysis, has a completely different methodology from our enrollment projections. However, what it shows us is while there's potential for student enrollment based on the developments that we know today to increase over the next 10 to 20 years, we start to see that fall off and start to normalize back to near where you're at right now with your enrollment. However, the big takeaway is that if all of that land in the future that is not currently identified for residential or is not currently in the entitlement process, there is an enormous potential of students that could come from that. And a planning takeaway for me, if I was sitting in your seat, would be that while we currently have enrollment that is declining slightly over the near term, over the next 10 years or so, based on what happens within your community, there is potential for enrollment growth in the future, driven by the amount of residential development that's possible. So I've run through that terribly quickly. I'm happy to go back to any slides and answer any questions that you have. Thank you in advance for your time.
Questions?
I got a question. In your demographics, you're projecting the growth, but how about the decrease in populations on certain parts of the area where it's already the older population? Do you have any graphs on that that show where the student population is drifting away from that section?
Right, and just to be clear, what we've shown you on those slides earlier in the presentation are district-wide. In our enrollment projection report, we have information that shows on a school-by-school basis what those projections are, and so that is where you can get a good sense of by boundary, where are there schools that are increasing, where are there schools that are decreasing, and to what level. So all of this on this particular slide is when we roll all that up and we aggregate all that data, but you are able to find school by school what are the trends that are happening at elementary, middle, and high, again, on a site-by-site basis.
You have that information available to.
Yeah, and I believe that report has already been provided to you, and it would be in that report. I can follow up and pull out the relevant pages if that's helpful.
That information was sent out on May 3rd, I believe, and we can get you a paper copy if you'd like over on Friday, or we can resend it to everybody to make sure that everybody has that information.
Mr. Rich, that mature yield projection of 0.47 students per unit, does that incorporate external variables like those students? Does that 0.47 students per unit already consider students who, although born within the boundaries of our school district, would go either to a private school, be homeschooled, go to a charter school, something like that? So that 0.47 is specific to our district considering those variables?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we've done is we've taken your student data and we identify where those students live. We match them to a parcel. So yes, this data is based specifically on your students and it is matched to those homes based on these different categories. How old is the home? What is the assessed value range of those homes? And this only incorporates those students that are currently within your district, not any who have moved out of the district or are attending a charter or private school. This is only those students within your district attending district schools.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
One more question. Just clarification, your historical and projected enrollment chart that you had up there?
Yeah, give me one sec. I'll get
On
back.
the bottom,
There we go.
yeah, there you go. That's right there. You show K through 12 totals and grand totals, and the difference is?
Well, and the K through 12 is only including grades K through 12, not early education or pre-kindergarten. So those have been held constant, early education and pre-kindergarten. We don't have the same ability to be able to project those students into the future, so we've held them constant. So that just includes those students as well, if that makes sense.
And your projections is showing a downward trend in both categories, correct?
That is correct. Although I will tell you that early education and pre-kindergarten have been held constant, so those are the same. But regardless if you total that or if you include that in total or not, it is showing a downward trend in enrollment. Again, the factors that have contributed to that are when we look at the beginning of that historical enrollment, kindergarten class sizes were about 2,900. Although we're projecting a small increase for the incoming school year based on that 2024-25 school year, based on additional enrollment data that we had, we'll start to see those births go back down. And so that's why we're projecting. That's part of the reason. In addition to that, we're also seeing smaller cohort survival ratios. And those are the two main factors that are contributing to the enrollment decline.
Ms. Perez,
Yes, sir.
earlier you showed the ADA number.
Yes, sir.
It comes in lower than the actual enrollment. What percentage are we looking at historically that our daily attendance is lower than the actual enrollment?
Historically, so it usually is. I mean,
Yeah,
just
so
generally.
so these numbers here that I'm saying, average daily attendance would be lower than what he's projecting here. And I'm trying to
Correct.
get, like,
These
what
are enrollment.
percentage are we looking at?
That's a good question. I can get that for you just here shortly after the next presentation, just to make sure that I'm getting the right numbers. But I do want to note that whenever we're talking about the early ed, anybody in the 3, 4s, in the pre-K and lower, those, the state allocation for that is half a day. So if right now we have 3,000 students in early ed through pre-K 4, and so we will get funding for 1,500 of those students. So that is another factor in working in what our ADA the total will be,
Okay.
and why there's such a huge difference between enrollment and ADA.
Okay, then we just focus on the K through 12 numbers then, and
Correct.
give us a percentage on
Yes, sir.
how much lower that the ADA is compared to enrollment.
Okay.
And Mr. Castellano, if I may, usually what that is our average, it's our attendance rate. So I think it hovers, and please correct me, about 94, 95% here in Socorro. So that's the factor that you're looking at. So the more that we could reiterate to parents to bring their children to school, because that truly helps us every single day with the ADA.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to give you an idea, pre-COVID, we're at about 96% attendance. Now we're at about 94% attendance district-wide.
But it's just a number that we have to consider when we're talking about budget.
Correct.
Yeah, you can say, yes, our enrollment is at 44,000 or whatever, but the actual, what we're getting reimbursed for is, only 95% of that.
Correct. And that, well, currently, as of right now, we're at 94.212%. And so when we go towards the budget activity, there is a line where we can look at what half a percent increase looks like, including a decrease up to 97 where we were pre-COVID.
I have no more questions on the demographics.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Rich. Then,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
So next up, we're going to look at the health insurance overview. This is not a discussion on what we're planning. This is a discussion on where we are as of right now so that we can plan for the next steps. And this is, I just want to make a comment on this. This is going to be presented by Mr. Carmona. I do want to let you know that in case we forgot, health insurance fund is completely separate from general fund. And while they both interact with each other, this is a completely separate account. So at this time, I'd like to call over Mr. Carmona.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Board President, Mr. Nájera, members of the board, Acting Superintendent, Mr. Vasquez, Mario Carmona, Director of Human Resources. Just as Ms. Perez mentioned, the information that I'm going to be covering today is exclusively related to the district contribution. The plan design and the rate that's required for the fund, the health fund, to be leveled or self-funded, self-sufficient, will be presented at a later time. So just to go over some of the information that I'm going to be covering, I'm going to go over plan options. You might recall that we offered 3 options at this point, which are the Premier, the Base, and the Consumer-Driven Health Plan. The Consumer-Driven Health Plan includes a health savings account to which currently the school district makes an annual contribution of $600 per employee that's participating in this particular plan. Current district contribution, employee premium, and total amount per health plan option will be reviewed as well in the next slide. And the required amount in terms of what's expected from the school district. So there's 3 pieces of information that are important when it comes to the fund itself. And you'll see that the district contribution across the board currently is $575. Then you'll see an amount listed per employee and level of coverage. Those coverages include employee only, employee and spouse, employee and children, and employee and family. And then lastly, you'll see a tier titled total premium. Know that these are the current total premiums to be met. This does not mean that this is what we're projecting for the next year. You might recall that the health fund itself has been running on a deficit for years. So that means that we will need to come back and, as I mentioned earlier, bring forth some information when it comes to how those or what those totals will look like. But this is a good point of reference. Either option offers 2 networks, the PPO or Preferred Provider Organization, and the ACO, the Accountable Care Organization. And going back to what the district is currently contributing, which is a $575, this is just to give you an idea of what this would look on a monthly basis. So here we're looking at enrollment information for the month of April 2024. And if we were to look at that month for the next 12 months, or for a full plan year, and hoping that nothing changes, everyone remains enrolled in the same option. There's no shift between levels of coverage. Everyone who has employee coverage stays in employee coverage. Everyone who has employee and spouse stays with employee and spouse, and so on. Then you'll see the annual district premium contribution, which currently is $36.9 million, shy of $40 million. In the budget exercise later on, you'll see that we will illustrate different options when it comes to if we were to make and consider and change to the district contribution itself, there will be a cost avoidance for the school district. And as Ms. Perez mentioned, this is important because after the budget year, as soon as it's going to conclude or after it has concluded, the school district has infused the health fund for a number of years. I think this year we're projecting close to $9 million, and I'll show you those amounts in a couple of slides. But it's important to know that if a reduction on school district contribution, then there will be a cost avoidance. Here in this particular slide, we're going from 575 to 565. Same number of people, same month, the month of April 2024, so you'll see that the membership, the employee count is the same. but there is a slight difference in terms of what the school district will be saving. Here we have the two comparisons side by side. You have, again, the same count of employees, the district monthly contribution, $575 versus $565, a difference of $10. Yet there is a savings, and I should say a cost avoidance from the school district. And the difference on an annual basis, it's $642,000. Compared to, and if you wanted to use this information as a reference as well, at the bottom of that slide is what's required from the school district, which is the minimum contribution of $225 per employee per month. So to give you a general idea of what the fund looks like when it comes to contributions, both from the school district and the employee, currently the total annual contribution to the health fund is $49.3 million. Our claims, if we work to compare that to the actual expenditures in administrative services fee, is $58 million, a deficit of $8.8 million. So that's the amount that we're going to be addressing when we get back to you with that plan design changes and the rates that are going to be required to be able to bring the total premiums to meet that deficit. So what are the next steps? Oops. Employees will continue to have an option to enroll in the consumer-driven health plan. Coverage for employee only will still be offered at zero cost to the employee. Employees and eligible dependents covered under any of the SISD health plan will continue to have access to the employee health clinic at a $10 co-payment per member per visit, and access to generics at zero copay. And another service that the pharmacy offers at the clinic is delivery of prescriptions at no cost. The SISD health, as I mentioned, the SISD employee health clinic will continue to provide delivery services for prescriptions throughout the entire school district. In reference to the deficit that has been subsidized by the school district, you'll see those amounts at the top of the graph. In 2020, you see the 9 million, 2021, 4.5, 2022, 4 million, and 2023, 6.5. In terms of next steps, we will continue to monitor the deficit. The employee contribution amounts require adjustments based on medical and prescription expenses per level of coverage. As I mentioned, right now, the current total monthly premiums are not level to the level of consumption, if you will. So we'll need to make adjustments to employee and spouse, and employee and children, and employee and family. The health fund forecast information for upcoming plan year will be provided before each annual open enrollment for employee benefits. Our open enrollment is held in the month of October. Are there any questions on this information?
Mr. Carmona, so just for clarity, the funded claims, right? The school district is self-insured, right? So when we receive a claim, although we have a third-party administrator, the claim comes to us, and through the TPA, third-party administrator, we have discounts, we have a network, et cetera. But basically, the district is paying those claims, right?
That is correct, yes.
So one way to, and I'm just, for example here, one way to cut our insurance expense by 50% would be to cut the district utilization by 50%, which we have no control over, right? But if we told our employees, or if our employees somehow stop going because their health improved that drastically, right? Stop going, and the funds that we receive by 50%, decreased by 50, I'm sorry, the claims that we receive total to 50%, then the cost to the district will reduce by 50%, right?
Generally speaking, yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then so some of the things that as members, as participants that we can do, we can we can lower the cost, some, not a lot, but some, by using the appropriate level of care or a lower level of care, which generally comes with a lower cost, right? And that's why some of the recommendations are to use the employee clinic, because the employee clinic is cheaper than maybe a a PCP, or certainly than an urgent care or an emergency room. The prescription service through the district is cheaper than, say, going to any of the external pharmacies, especially those that, we may not be contracted with, et cetera. So trying to match the need with the appropriate level of care, even though I know sometimes Summit or any of the other urgent cares is way more convenient because it's in and out. However, that comes with a greater cost, not only to the employee, but to the district as well as, say, the medications, instead of having to wait through the mail for a 90-day, or even from the pharmacy for a 90-day subscription, and getting it that way, being able to pick it up, just swing by on your way home or whatever, yeah, that's convenient, but it does come at a greater cost. So some of that we can shift that way, right? That's not going to fix our problem.
No, it's
Understand
not,
that.
but you're correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carmona. So next we will have the priorities activity led by Dr. Michael Hinojosa, our TEA conservator. Dr. Hinojosa?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you for welcoming us to your community. Tonight, we're about to put you to work. There are some things that we need to prioritize, and so if you'll pull up my slides, I'd like to kind of get us started on this. I won't be up here long. This is just a guide, but as we start our budgeting process, I want you to think about the difference between strategic planning and strategic thinking. I internalized this concept in 1995 when I was the executive director of Region 19, and everybody argued with me because I'd never had a strategic plan. And I would argue, you don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now. 5 years ago, we had a pandemic, and we had a whole completely different country than what we have now. But when I went to Georgia, the University of Georgia Business School convinced me that the difference is strategic thinking is, in strategic thinking, that's an 18-month period. Most of us know where we're going to be professionally and personally 18 months from now. And then they make the further point that every quarter you get more data. And the more data that you get, you can make better decisions. So I want this board to pivot from thinking 5 years down the road to think 18 months down the road. And then we're going to get more data as we go along this path. And so, for example, you got 3 major challenges in front of you right now. The first one, this is the most urgent, and this is the budget. And you've seen the numbers. Figures don't lie, but liars figure. You hope it's going to get better, so you kick the can down the road. Well, you saw that enrollment, although when I was here in 1995, you had 18,000 students. You have 48,000 right now. And it's starting to decline. Your average daily attendance was a much higher percentage since the pandemic is starting to decline. Your benefits costs are escalating. The number of positions that you've had have increased. So all of these factors are heading in the wrong direction. But I'm not a purveyor of doom. This is very fixable. But what you do in the next 2 weeks is going to say, are you going to kick it down the road another 18 months? Or are you going to make some courageous first steps in a multi-step process that will start exercising some discipline that will allow you to be the Team Socorro that you deserve to be and you have been in the past? But we got to start now. And in the next few weeks, in the next few days, I'm going from here to Providence tomorrow, and then I'm coming back Thursday, and then I'm going to Portland, then I'm going to San Antonio, then I'm going to somewhere in Ohio, and then I'm coming back. Because in the next 2 weeks, we have to adopt a budget. So how does a budget get adopted? You have said you have not had enough transparency. By the time tonight's over, you're going to say, okay, we got it. Because after we do our prioritization, then you're going to get a chance to actually roll your sleeves up and look at what ifs and make modifications. You don't have to do it all tonight. You don't have to do it all this month, but you gotta get started. Once you get started, budgeting is linear. It just takes tough decisions. And you've got a great community and you don't want to impact them too negatively, but they also got to know that you got to tighten your belt. Paying for your mortgage with your credit card is a recipe for disaster. And so you've got to get off that train and get off that train right now. So how does budgeting supposed to work? The state law says that the board has 3 major jobs. Hire and fire the superintendent, you're going to be doing that too. Policy and the budget. But you don't prepare the budget. There was an Austin board president that prepared her budget, and the state had to go change the law that says that the board president doesn't prepare the budget. The staff recommends a budget that the board adopts. Command decisions are easy to make. We're going to adopt this budget, kick the can down the road, and see what happens. Consensus decisions are messy. They take a little bit longer. We're going to go through an elaborate workshop. We're going to be finished at a decent hour tonight. But you're going to be involved. We're going to be involved. The staff has already gone through part of this activity, and now you get to go with it. But then you're a team. Then we're going to go through it together to see what comes to the top for Team Socorro. Now, I'm often known for telling a few jokes. So there was this guy named Willie Sutton, and they said, "Willie, why do you rough banks?" He goes, "Because that's where the money is." So if 90% of your money is in payroll related, most districts it's 80%. Yours is 90%. So you can cut all the rubber bands and you can cut all the travel and you can cut all the meals. It's not going to get you there. It's not going to make a dent. But if you strategically look at resource allocation, take a little bit from here so you don't ruin the great stuff. Today I heard about the outstanding results that are happening at your secondary schools because of some very strategic academic decisions that you're making. And these kids graduating with associate's degrees. These are the kinds of things you want to keep. And you can keep all of this, but you can't keep it if you don't exercise any discipline in your financial part of the house. And we're here to coach you. Your team has worked hours upon hours to get us ready for this evening. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so we have a focus question. If everything is important, nothing is important. You cannot boil the ocean. You cannot water the desert. You have to start somewhere. So before we start, those index cards are for later. But let me tell you what I'm going to have you to do. I've hopefully argued that you at least should consider where this district's going to be in the next 18 months. And in 18 months, every quarter, we pierce the next quarter, we get more information. We'll know things a little bit better. We just are projecting. By the way, we projected enrollment this year, and that's costing us. When we get to October and November, we'll know how close we are on that budget assumption. And I know in this district, it's very different than any district I've ever seen, how you adopt your benefits packet. It's already adopted. You don't get a chance to reconsider that till January. So there's nothing you can do right now for it anyway. But in the fall, you'll know where that is trending. And you'll also know that if you can encourage your principals and your parents to get the kids to school, that's going to help you gain revenue a little. And you're going to see on your own where 1%, what 1% would do to help you with this. So these are the things that we want you to consider. So now I want you to, and by the way, 6 words or less. If you can't say it in 6 words, you're talking too much. But in your own mind, as you've heard about enrollment, as you've heard about benefits, as you've heard about salaries, as you've heard about morale, as you've heard of average daily attendance, here's the focus question. And you can only generate as many 6-word answers as you can on your own paper. And then we're going to ask you to share those in just a moment. But what major budget challenges must be overcome by the Socorro ISD by December of 2025. So that's in a year and a half. What must you be on the road to solving in 6 words or less? Hire a stronger police force. If that's what you think it is, then that's what you think it is. If it's recruiting more pre-K students, whatever you think in 6 words or less are going to help us get out of this budget situation, then you'd write them down. So write down, I'll be quiet now, generate as many ideas as you can, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to have each one of you share one of your ideas, and we'll go around a couple of times. So I'll be quiet for a couple of minutes. And thank you all for being here. And so we're going to get some help from the staff. And I also want to thank Andrew Kim, who's been phenomenal on being here and working with your team. Now, the way this works, I'm going to start with Trustee Macias. And I'm going to ask her to share one of them. And then we're not going to issue any judgment. We're just going to take her 6 words, and then I'll go down the whole row and have every trustee share one. If yours is already up there, get another one. If you don't have one that's already come to you, it's okay to pass. We just want quality of ideas. And then the way this process works, you'll see how it all comes together. Trustee Macias, 6 words or less.
Enrollment must drive staffing top down.
Okay? And we're recording that. Enrollment must drive staffing top down. Trustee Barrera.
There's a drive missing between must and staffing.
Well, we let people hyphenating and stuff. Trustee Barrera.
Customer service.
Customer service. That's a new one, but that's a good one. Trustee Najera.
State funding.
State funding. Mr. President.
Properly manage health plan claims cost.
Let me know if you need for them to repeat it. Trustee Guerra.
So I don't know, mine's the same as Ms. Maribel Macias, but she mentioned enrollment was drive staffing, but mine was increase our enrollment.
Those are different, but let's write it down. And there's a process to combine later, but we want everybody's ideas. Trustee Guerra.
I'm very wordy, so I'm trying to bring it down. In reference to our teachers, I'm talking about finding the means. I put salary, what they're worth, and retention. I'm talking
Salary, worth, and retention of staff.
of our staff, yes.
Trustee Castellano.
District needs to be efficient in every part of its operations.
Okay. We're going to go 3 rounds. We're going to come back and get another round up there. And if you're not sure if it's similar, just go ahead and say it, and we'll combine them later if necessary. But, Trustee Castellano, let's go back with you since you were the
I
last
didn't
one.
put a second one yet.
Okay, you're going to pass? Trustee Castellano.
The other one, again, is about our teachers. Take care of our staff mental health.
Staff mental health. Trustee Guerra, are you ready?
Yes, sir. How to go after our vouchers. How to go after vouchers.
Okay, how to go after vouchers. Okay. Mr. President?
Prioritize programs offered.
Okay. Prioritize programs offered. Trustee Nahida?
I have health care.
Health care. Let's leave it up there because we might want to combine. Barrera, Trustee Barrera.
focus on retention, but priority should be the teacher and students. Those two should be priorities.
Student and teacher retention. Trustee Macias.
We're thinking of like retain high quality faculty and staff.
Retain high quality faculty and staff. That's a little bit different, but it is important. All right, now we've gone through 2 rounds. Now we're going to go back for the last round. It's okay to pass. But if you have a different one, even if it's similar, let's put it up there and we'll combine them if necessary. Trustee Macias, last round.
With this one, I was thinking on our compensation, and I know that this is difficult, difficult times right now. I'll still put it down, competitive compensation.
Competitive compensation. Trustee Barrera.
Needs to be the budget, but we need to create a surplus.
Okay. Create a surplus. That's simple enough and understandable. Thank you. Because your fund balance has been going down, as was indicated by your reports. Trustee Nahida.
I was going to say fund balance, but
Okay. Thank you. Mr. President.
Pursue departed students.
Pursue departed students. And let me put it into two words, market share. Mr. Guerra.
Dissecting our programs.
Okay, dissecting program evaluation. See, I argue with educators all the time. We hate the word abandonment because we think it's a negative word. But we never abandon anything that's not adding value. We only want to add more stuff. And we never go through that process of looking at programs and see if they're really valuable. Trustee Gardea.
Mr. Nahida took mine, but compete with private schools.
Compete with private schools. And last chance, Trustee Castellano.
No property tax increases.
No property tax increases. All right. We've gone 3 rounds, so everybody had their chance. Does anybody have a burning platform 1 that just got to get on there even though you didn't even have it in your top 3? Does anybody else have one?
Was in my top 3 and not mentioned, and we talked about it just a bit ago. ADA, improve it.
Improving average daily attendance. Okay, now here's the next step in the process. Okay, B, C, D, E, F. Okay. What we need to do is go to the top. And what you need to do, hopefully you can see that clearly on your screen. What has to happen next is if we need to see if anything needs to be clarified. And I think you were very clear. I know that customer service drives enrollment. I know that by experience. State funding, that's a little bit out of our control, but there is going to be something happening because certain people want to deal. But that's going to be not in this budget, for sure. Those are very clear to me. Does any of the trustees have any questions about what these mean? I've looked at them and they're very clear. They were very concise. Okay, now the next step is a couple of them are similar. And if you don't combine them, they're going to lose their power. But only the 2 owners can combine them. So we have 1 on enrollment. We have 2 on enrollment, A and E, and only the owners can combine them. We have retention of staff. But then we have add high quality. We have create a budget surplus plus fund balance. Those are very similar. So do any of the owners want to combine what they proposed?
Dr. Hinojosa and Mr. Guerra, I propose that we combine prioritized programs offered with program evaluation.
Okay, let's add program evaluation to prioritize programs offered. And then delete that other one. Okay, anybody else want to combine two items?
I also believe K, and I don't remember healthcare who offered that. I'm sorry.
I did.
Okay, Ms. Nahida, are you okay with combining D, properly managed health plan claims costs with healthcare?
Absolutely.
Okay. Including all healthcare. Put add including all healthcare, and we'll delete that one. Okay, that's two great combinations. You'll see why in a moment.
I think, I'm not sure how to go after vouchers. Was that Mr. Nahara? Oh, Mr. Guerra, with competing with private schools, that was us.
And market share.
And market share is the same, am I correct? I think we can combine all three.
I think those are fair to combine if all three owners agree, because there's not much you can do about vouchers unless you come up with your own program that's going to increase your market share. And so I think they're related, but I think you'll have to have multiple strategies if you want to pull that off. So that's a good combination. The only other ones that I feel put it in the market share. That's broader. Yeah.
Yes,
right there.
it was us.
Add that to market share.
I think also the F, the retention of staff, there was another one that
L?
oh, L. Mine was the first one. Who's L?
Fine.
Are you willing to combine? Or are they different?
I think that's, well, I mean, I'm pretty much saying the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's fine.
Let's combine those two, and we probably need to stop here because we're getting it pretty tight, and you got to let the rest of the process work.
Okay.
So if you can combine those. Okay, now this is very primitive, but just take your index card.
Mr. Hinojosa,
Yes.
I got asked by Ms. Nahara if, were you for P?
O and P, yes. P was
I'm okay
mine.
with combining.
O and P, did y'all
O is
combine?
mine.
Okay, thank you. That helps. All right. So you take this index card that you were given, 15, 12, 10, 8, and 5, and write them down just like this on your index card. Same numbers, my numbers, 15, 12, 10, 8, and 5. Your number one choice gets 15 points. Your fifth choice how many choices do we have? Yeah, we have 24. And you only get to pick 5 because you can only prioritize 5. So, and then your second choice gets 12 points. And all you do is write the alpha of the letter. Whatever your number one choice, you need to put it beside the 15 is, and write the alpha. And then your second choice, so you get 5 choices. And once you fill out your card, Mr. Kim will come get them from you. Once you finish your 5 choices, hold them up and Mr. Kim will come get them.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to ask the cabinet members to come up and take these chairs on these three tables.
It's okay.
Do you have them all? All right, let's play. Yeah, there's one more. Let's play some bingo now. Mr. Kim, if you'll read them out, and we'll record them.
All right, sir. Here we go. We have 15 for A.
A15, just like bingo.
12O. Let's go O12.
O12.
O12. D10.
There we go.
L8. R5. L15. B12. O10. T8. D5. M15. D12. L10. L10. Q8.
Wait, we lost the fifth. Okay, all right, got it.
Q8. N5. Okay, D15. A12. N10. U8. Q5. Okay. C15. D12. O10. U8. E5. Okay. G15. T12. B10. M8. O5. Okay, last one. E15. U12. C10. R8. And G5. But bingo.
Bingo. Okay. All right. Now, this is very important. Let's make sure somebody saves a copy of this spreadsheet, because through the process you went through, all of these things need to be important. And all of these made your top list. For example, like increasing enrollment may not make it to the top, but it's related to other things. It's related to state funding and a lot of other things. But it looks like there's clear number one is healthcare. Start building your fund balance is 2. Keep your teachers and staff is 3. Let's see. Yeah, let's cut it off right there. There you go. Even though, I don't know, let's see, 2 board members had M, 2 board members had B, but I think there's at least, there's only 2 on state funding. So let's cut it off at 27, because we kept 5 from the staff, and now we're going to keep 5 from the board. Now, if you'll pull up the staff one so the board can see what the staff came up with. Okay, there they are. Reduce health fund deficit, address compensation. Oh, actually, they have 6 from the staff. And you see there. Do the board members have any questions on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items that I want somebody on the staff, Mr. Superintendent, if you can recall, 3 of the staff members came up to successfully adapt to the new reality. Do you or Mr. Kim recall what that conversation was about?
Yes, I believe it's just in light of our budget situation and decreasing enrollment. We need to all start thinking in that way, and in light of the demography study as well.
Also, I remember this conversation was really important, and I want one of the cabinet members or Mr. Superintendent to talk about prioritized values and initiatives to budget. Tell the board what y'all meant by that.
I think it's kind of like what Mr. Guerra mentioned earlier, just really looking at our programs, evaluating those, looking at that strategic abandonment and prioritizing what is truly important to us as a district.
And I heard it from the board. You don't want to give up like this P-Tech stuff that's working with your kids getting an associate's degree. You got to keep that no matter what. And I think that's what the values that Socorro values need to be in this budget prioritization. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater is really kind of what I heard. All right, so now, anybody have any other questions before now we add all those together and do this one last time before we put you to work some more? All right, staff members, do you have any questions about the board's priorities? Okay, I think they're very clear. All right, let's pass out some more index cards. And the staff get them this time, and the superintendent gets them this time. And the same thing, 15, 12, 10, 8, and 5. And Vicki, you get one too. You're doing all the work. Okay, now you got all of these to choose from both teams, which is now Team Socorro. Hold on. Okay. 15, 12, 10, 8, 5. When you got your card finished, lift it up. Mr. Kim will take it. I think we need to stop for a second. There are 2 that are, actually 3 that are healthcare related. Does anybody object to combining A and H? This is combined 2 of them. Any objections? Hearing none, we're combining A and H. So now let's look at your number. If you need a fresh index card, raise your hand. Mr. Kim will bring you a new index card if you need one. And that makes it more fair. I just want the media and the staff to see that it doesn't say anything about cutting anything. It just talks about prioritizing. So as you're finishing, this is what's going to happen next. We have another meeting Thursday night to take this information that we learned tonight and make some decisions about compensation and health care that we can. So that'll drive the staff to go prepare the rest of the budget to have you consider in 2 weeks when we adopt the budget. And remember, we don't have to solve all of this at once. You didn't get here in 1 year. And so there may be some direction that you give us about multiple years to be able to resolve these issues. And you can't do one thing, but you can't do everything. So you have to have a strategy on market share no matter where it ends up. But that by itself is not going to solve it for you.
Chair Hinojosa, if I may add, there were 2 Fs on the list from the combined list. So
Yeah.
if anybody picked an F, you'd have to do like a red F or a black F.
Okay. Thanks for catching that, but let's just see where this takes us, and then one of them's about benefits and one of them is about enrollment. So let's just get the cards, let's see where it takes us, and then we'll modify. If we had to add another one, we'll see where it falls. Let's put them.
All right, we're ready. Ready? Okay. I-15, G12, C10, E8, and F5. J15, I-12, A10, K8, D5. Okay, G15, C12, A10, D8, I5. Okay, 8A15, B12, F10, I8, and K5. Okay, B15, C12, F10, G8, J5. Okay, B15, C12, F10, K8, G5. Okay, A15, B12, C10, G8, K5. E15, A12, J10, G8, C5. Okay, E15, B12, G10, F8, K5. A15, B12, K10, G8, and I5. A15, B12, F10, G8, I5.
Looks like we're going to be in violent agreement.
Okay. Next, A15, B12, K10, G8, J5. A15, B12, C10, G8, K5. last one, B15.
Got to
Okay.
call them.
Got a column. Okay, ready? B15. Okay, C12, E10, 8, and A5. All right. I. No, A5. Okay, B15, C12, E10, I8, and A5. All right.
All right, let's scroll over. Wow. Health, get that fixed, even if it's a multi-year step. But look, I want you to look at establish a sustainable finance model. You don't want to be here every year. Look how many people pick that as one of their top 5 priorities. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Almost everybody says, we don't want to do this every year. Let's fix this. Let's start fixing this right now, and we don't have to be here. And then, of course, your values, because you're very proud of some of your great work here, and you don't want to let that go away. All right. So why don't you color code it and reprioritize it? And then I think I'll hand it back to whom? Yeah, we'll do that during the break. But let me, Mr. Kim, you want to talk to him about what to expect after the break?
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. If we can switch back to the PowerPoint, please. So the next part of our budget workshop is going to be the budget training activity led by Mr. Kim and HR and Finance. So this is an overall view, like a higher level 80,000 altitude overview. And we have 3 tasks on this, 3 goals. First, the purpose is for the board to gain a knowledge about the overall process. The second one is the understanding of how the information coordinates with each other. So the template itself will show, okay, if I increase here and I decrease there, what does that overall bottom line look like? And 3, at the end of the activity, the board will be able to provide questions for clarity and be able to provide our superintendent with direction and a driving force of where we'd like to be at. So once again, this is a training activity and we will not be making any recommendations. The items on the template itself are not recommendations. We put absolutely all options on the table so that we can see exactly what the cost value is and what the overall end product is. So we will break out into 3 sections. Excuse me. Each section will be facilitated by a finance person and an HR administrator. And at this time, I'd like to invite Mrs. Olson to go over the activity training template. We'll go into a recess shortly after, and then we will start walking around and getting that going. Ms. Olson?
Good evening, Board President Nahara, Acting Superintendent Mr. Vasquez, members of the board. So the budget activity that we're going to do this evening, what you'll notice is the bottom line reflects what was presented to you at the last board workshop, and that's the deficit of $41 million. You'll notice a lot of yellow fields, and basically the yellow fields, anywhere there's a yellow highlighted field, you can select an option in the drop-down menu, and the selected option will have an associated value. When the activity is complete, you'll see it's like line 62. That's where we have the $41 million deficit. We'll see it's like whether or not it's like you could balance the budget or not. So the game, it's basically balance the budget game. And I'd like to thank Mr. Kim and his former CFO, Crystal Hermish, is that right? Hermish? They have spent a lot of time with us to ensure that we can share this activity with you. Thank you.
Mr. Kim, you want to add something, sir?
Good evening, board members. Once again, I just want to thank the staff. They really have done a great job of making all the details work. As you think about transparency, as you think about how things work, you oftentimes have a lot of questions. And in many cases, it's really hard to understand how these things correlate to one another. So this game, which I'm trying to go ahead and, by the way, trademark to sell out there, that balance the budget game. Now, the whole point is that you're going to find some level of challenges when it comes to balancing the budget. But we're going to give you all the different scenarios based upon your numbers here in the Socorro Independent School District. Now, I'm just saying that this is a part of the process that we would like to install as you do the budget process going forward in the future. In fact, this activity also can be done with your principals as well, too, and others out there. Because everybody needs to understand how the sausage gets made in many ways. But you're going to get the first attempt today. This is for you to be interactively involved. Your facilitators, the finance person and the HR person that's going to be assigned to your tabletops as you do this, are only going to facilitate and perhaps answer some questions. Mr. Carmona will be actually walking around because he is your health fund self-care expert. So he'll go around and answer any questions that are related to that field within the template that goes through. You want to go and look at how this thing goes all night long and see if you can go and actually achieve this in one way or the other. What you see is that when you move or decide to increase enrollment, decrease something else, it creates issues. So you get to see how these things all work together. Once again, the background in this has been really worked out well. And I do want to thank your the team, Vicki, as well as Susan Olson and Renee. They've done a fantastic job with the HR folks. They've done a tremendous job making this thing work. So hopefully that you'll see the value of it as well, too, and get to really exercise and work with that. I know Mr. Vasquez has worked with you, Ms. Board President, to see which tabletops everybody's going to be assigned to with the folks. But I do recommend that we take a little recess while we set up the boards so that we can be seated at the floor level to continue on with the game.
If I may, real quick before we take a break, we are going to be breaking up into groups 3, 2, and 2 for the purposes to meet policy requirements. There will be a microphone at each table. That's for broadcasting purposes only, not for inside of here. So, and just a reminder to the audience that these are just ideas we're sharing. This is a game. Nothing is reflective of actual adoption of any budget or healthcare plans. This is merely for the purposes of trying to balance the budget and for this activity. But I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez. So I just want to make one more comment. We could be on this template all day. So in order to maximize our time and be efficient, we will set a time limit for 43 minutes. Don't ask me why. Mr. Kim said so, that's why. So yes, sir.
Want me to announce the table
Please
breakout?
do. Yes, sir.
Over here to my right is table 1 will be Mr. Barrera, Ms. Gardea, and Mrs. Nájera. Table 2 here in the center is Mrs. Macias and Mr. Castellano. And table 3, the one to my left, will be Mr. Guerra and myself.
Sure. Thank you. So we'll take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We'll let IT get everything set up, and then we'll come right back. Thank you, sir.
We are putting a timer for 43 minutes. It's now 7:14, so just before 8 o'clock, we'll be wrapping up. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start the clock now.
Again, this drill is just to get an idea of which direction to take. It's just to cut a balanced budget. And the only factors that we've been anything in yellow, as Susan mentioned earlier, there's quite a few of them. And it does have a drop box, so whatever
Would you like to start off?
you dictate,
Would you like to?
obviously, as you can see, just an example right now, we have a drop box. And whatever amount you say, it'll fabricate the number on the next column, and tell you how much that would cost or how much it would take. So, right, and if that's what
I see that it's there.
it's really up to you.
Please teach me on the Vader. What does that?
I don't want to start there. I want to see what the impact is at 0, and then come back and stuff. But we know that the maximum is 12, and
All the pennies, upper pennies.
So we want to show them all the. So is this the thing where it can manipulate taxes, or is it that? I know that in the language we have, it has to say that it increases, but it might be.
$41 million.
It's the 41 that we're going to.
Right, and there's golden pennies.
We want it to be. Can you go with this later? What's the information you get?
Well, you would have to get the voter, right?
It is. You have right now in the district, you have 5 golden pennies.
yeah, whatever we.
12 that you can go up to if you wanted to. But remember, it's not the board's decision. Are you going to be, if you were to do it, you're basically saying we're going to approve the election of the voters.
How does that
Now, if you access all 12, 5 of those 12 are what's known as golden pennies. The rest of it is known as copper pennies. What's the difference? Those 5 golden pennies has a different weight, a different value. So you that you gain more revenue out of that. Copper values kind of have a little bit of a lower rate in terms of what you gain out of the tax rate. That's also
Let's just say we could see.
but really, if you want to go 0 on that, you don't get stuck on that line. Go to the next one, come back to it, and see what happens with the whole thing.
I saw that you put 1 cent up,
Oh, yeah.
and it was, no, yeah, okay. And so basically, it's 1.75 for every cent.
Something attainable, how, I
And I
mean,
was just
usually what's,
confirming that,
what,
because at 12, it's the 21 cent.
I would say if you were to ask for the voters, and the
Like for
voters
me,
approve it,
and this is the next year, right?
generate $3.5 million.
Every year, or one in this?
Well,
Every
based
year,
on the
if you
information
spend
that we
it,
received,
does that make sense there?
what did he
Like,
say the
you don't
enrollment
get
was gonna be
3.5
for
million
next
dollars 1 year,
week,
another
next
3.5
year?
to spend. 3.5 million is all you get.
Maybe 90.
So if you spend it all in 1 year, you spend it all in 1 year.
Oh, well then let's factor it in there then.
So did you want to do a decrease in
Yeah, we won't get it. I think it's 300.
let's try to aim for 95.
90% of our budget is salaries.
Correct.
I think that's what we need to attack.
So, as far as the
And that's part of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, because
Right.
what I would say, let's start with the fixed pile, and then go with
But why does there have to be money?
Then
Because I think when the way that I think kids, especially like young.
So the next one is student enrollment. Do you all think there's gonna be an increase or a decrease? Because that's gonna have an impact too. So if you click on it, Renee, there's options. All the way
300
to
it is.
negative.
and I think it's between 700 and 900 that we've been experiencing, so it's just so you can.
Yeah, and based on what we just saw, we're still projecting the 6, right?
Incentivized.
So I think we have to
And I
be
can tell you
honest.
guys, based on registrations right now
It's a
and
task.
current
It
enrollment,
really is, especially when you get to the high school.
So I think 6 would be.
right now, we have that many less registrations.
then it becomes.
I mean, are you
Now,
ladies all right?
they're not completely registered, but
The 95
that's kind of been the trend over the last few weeks.
tax rate election, just to see
That's the revenue.
Can I just get a little bit of
94% attendance, and right now we're at 93.
It's about 94, but we are factoring at 93 at the top just to be conservative. Now, one thing I want to point out, and Ms. Martinez, you can remember, is in the past we've been at 96%. So if that's a goal we want, we can, that's an option. It's just as a district that becomes, so we can all salaries, and we would have to follow through with that, putting a plan in place. So if, show them what it looks like at 96.
What was our average this past
So
year?
that generates revenue.
Because it's 3%.
Correct.
But I always feel being conservative is the best way, so the 94 is the reality of where we are right now.
Or it's like,
What do you think, Mr. Costello? Yeah,
Why does the attendance factor over there say 93 on top?
right now.
oh, so this was
So on the student enrollment, are you comfortable with this one?
And that's per 100.
Yeah, and I don't,
Now we'll
because
go
I
into
agree
the
exactly
next
what
group.
Ms. Olson said. You know, that which gets
So first thing we're
prioritized.
gonna look at is substitute options, right?
So if we leave it at
So
94, that's where
right
we're gonna
now,
stay.
we have a
But if we
$4.2 million
increase it,
increase,
then that
and you can
becomes the
choose
new
to change
target,
the
and we're gonna do
percentage
everything we can to get
to
it there.
decrease that amount.
so did you want to?
So teach us a little bit,
Say, let's look at
substitute
96.
options, so these are,
So
what you'll notice
keep in mind that this
here
$4.2
is-
million
able to
is
see
in
it
addition to
bottom
the
as it
seven.
goes
So
through?
right now, we're targeting 12 for the school year, which is significantly high. So right now, we're leaving it at that because that's what it's at. But if you want to decrease that, and for example, if you wanted to keep us at the 7 million, then we would go and make that, it would be zero. We would not increase the 4.2.
okay.
So that's kind of how that scenario works. So if you minus it out 100%, it ends up being zero.
And I will say, we're putting some things together to address the substitution as to how the
So.
But the big question is whether it would be approved or not.
And when would that, when would that election?
decrease in the number of students by 3,
So, you know, it's like,
and giving planning days to all of the teachers. That way they don't have to call it a sub. We'll still meet our instructional minutes, we'll have leftover, but at least we're not using sub for those planning days. They'll be built in the school. I don't have it a dollar amount, but we're working on that right now. But it'll be significant because every school uses it
How many golden pennies are available?
for every teacher.
So Mr. Vasquez, since you have a plan, what
So
do
one of
you
the
feel
things
is
that
minus 50%
substitute options.
From
based on the plan that you,
I would be conservative and say, you know,
From spending 7
30% or so. I think it could be more, but I just want to be
you feel
conservative.
comfortable with the 30 with the plan that you currently have?
I think that plus some other things we need to codify still, but as for
Maybe we should ask
when
for
and how
like if they want to reduce.
teachers or
So
schools
is it
use
important
this.
for schools to have classrooms?
What do you think,
So
Mr.
do we want to
Castellano?
spend an additional $4.2 million?
We're talking about a decrease, I'm sorry, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
The
And
decrease
that,
would
I
help.
mean, this is low lying fruit.
I don't understand. I mean, we have an increase, and I suspect the increase is because the teachers weren't present. So if the teacher's not present and we need a teacher in the classroom, how can we control this line item?
So can I tell you from having been a former principal, I know that one thing the previous superintendent would do is they would throw up teacher attendance by campus. It was ranked. The campus that had the highest attendance
I think
was on
that's why
top,
you
the
went
campus that had
conservative
the
with
lowest
a 30.
attendance.
Exactly.
For everybody to see, was common practice. And of course, the goal was you don't want to get involved.
But I mean, it's like 5 golden
And so
pennies for every 1 penny
you
that
speak to your staff
they don't give us
about
5 golden
that. That
pennies
really
for every
does
1
come
penny that
So
from
then,
the taxpayer
keep
gets,
it
right?
at 30?
So how much is that for substitute teachers? How much is that if teachers are out? They're sick.
So the next option is
It's a
changing
variety of
class
reasons,
sizes.
honestly. Some of them are because you're the teachers and that can't be controlled,
If we
but
were
there
to
are
change
other
K through
factors
4
such as
23 to
PDs,
1,
DPLCs.
that would have cost savings.
Sometimes, you know, for testing, the subs will be called in. So one way to reduce that cost would be, okay, we're only gonna allow substitutes if it is a
That's
vacant
it went from 7
teacher.
to
So every
4
time
or
you're
it increased?
submitting a waiver, there is a true vacancy teacher that comes in to fill
No,
that
for
position,
5th
something like
through
that.
12th, it's not TA.
We got waivers
So
to have
that
student
reflects
holidays.
now, if we leave it as is with the 4.2.
Do we still have the CSR, the class size reduction teacher in 5th
But,
grade?
you know, right now, generally, teachers are taking Mondays and Fridays.
30%. But what does that mean exactly if we decrease it?
So
It is 25. But it reduces
With
to
the
24.
CSR.
With the CSR, it goes to 24.
Oh, with the CSR, it goes to 24. So you, right now, recommendation, take away the CSR?
You wouldn't take them away.
And we're looking at something that's exactly as the
Your
school.
dollar amount relative to the number of teachers you have.
Client, we're looking at a 4 million increase.
Student to teacher ratio is never, other than
So
decreasing.
what happens if you put minus 50 on that number?
It's about the case.
Something percent of our
So
vacancies are jobs that
the
are.
budget right now reflects a 4.2 million increase, so that is additive. We're saying that it's going to increase over.
Substitutes now. We have close to 1,500 substitutes. And so with
What about
that,
6 through 8? Do you want to see those? You don't want to see them?
our vacancies, or at least most of them. So with that comes a cost. And
Okay,
the cost
and
is
what was
we
it
have to pay
before?
that substitute. And of course, it
Last
ranges
year.
from somebody who just has 30 college hours up to somebody who is a certified teacher, and then long-term positions also, especially with the amount of vacancies that we have. We have,
What does it do for 9 to 12?
I would say,
And again,
my opinion would be to set that at zero, figure out what was different
So there's two options there. You could go
last year
25
and
to
this
1.
year and start to adopt some of these
So
things.
those kind of costs impacted
and see, the thing is that
Okay,
in the grades that we need the smallest class sizes, the way that
So
this is
instead of
done is
increasing
cross
by
cross launch, your English, your
I can tell you from a principal perspective, it absolutely did hurt because you don't want to be
And so you share that with your teachers and you let them know this is where we're at. And so we need to really start looking
senior
at,
level classes.
maybe you're not gonna have a planning day before where subs come in, we might have to redo that during the
Unless
PD
we
week when
could
kids are not here, things like that.
Those are the ones that take
I would say right now, it's an initial analysis right now, we're gonna have to dig a little deeper, but, even though this is what the staffing ratio is that the HR uses to
So
define
basically what we
positions,
would say
in
is.
reality, right now, you have actually, the numbers are actually very, very good. Like, you have class size in high school, class 12 kids, 15 kids. So it creates a level of efficiency issue.
What I meant to
Because
say, that which
there's
gets
no
measured gets
correlation to class
If you
size.
start to measure this, you start
Unless you
to,
get down to like 2 or 3.
It starts with awareness.
That's not saying that I want to see 60 class size issue is out there. It's whatever you guys feel comfortable with is what you gotta do. But you can see what it doubles by, right? About 55%, 57%. Now, when you have a declining enrolled school district, or potential decline in enrollment, at some point, you can't afford the overages on children teachers. That's where your biggest payroll is. You're at 92%. So the question is, well, how do we amicably
well, we have talked to a couple of third-party
But just for
companies.
fun,
in order to
you
make
wanna see
sure
what
that
that
we
would
are in line
There's
with
a cost that comes with that.
we're also gonna be
So,
overspending.
just for fun.
on
You can
top
just
of what
look at it.
sub will cost, and we
That's
have,
something that,
they're, the administrative.
you know, San Antonio ISD is closing
So
down
then,
13.
It's not, and well, it is, what we can do is give them a budget.
It's a good way
what
for
it
you.
means is
Or we
you,
have 7 million.
Remember,
Yes.
you're not married to anyone.
Very unpredictable
You
because
just wanna see how
you know,
much,
again,
what
we
it
can
does.
do
The bottom
days
line,
the teachers will be out.
reduces the
Renee's been
number
showing
of
the very bottom.
teachers
Every
or
time you
FTEs
put
that
something
are
change,
needed.
right now,
Not
you're
only
at
is it
37 million
Correct.
And it's February,
deficit.
you know, that kind
Remember,
of.
the whole point of the game is to
Are
balance
we
budget.
able to consider
We're trying to get to zero.
teachers
class
with
option
more
for fifth grade.
taxes? I mean, illness is at the
For me, it
I
was,
want you to see.
How are you guys doing on the bottom line? Just the very bottom.
copy of it just right
You're at 25, 29 million? I think you guys are winning right now.
That's a
You guys are getting closer to zero. Okay, all right.
I never thought 25 million.
Why is it that for fifth graders, it's a 25-to-1 ratio?
So if, one thing I want to point out is what's in blue. So some of the closed position, we've closed positions. And that has totaled 1.3 million. Right now, we have vacant positions.
So are y'all,
We're
would y'all
on
like to consider changing the class size ratio?
higher. So those total 6 points. And the purpose of that is to avoid fixed staff. We can do things through attrition and where there's excess, shuffle them and to fill some of those positions.
everybody
That
has
way,
a job.
everybody keeps
I
it.
mean-
That's kind of
So
the overall goal, right?
No, I mean,
So
I
that's already been
30.
I'm gonna be honest, if we're gonna do that, I wanna hit the pre-K
Right.
for 20.
Wait, we gotta
I don't know what you guys
And
want
the
to
reason why I say that is
do.
because if you address the reading, writing, and math early on, the middle school through high school is not gonna, teachers won't struggle or shouldn't struggle as much.
So then the next one that we don't have the 21.
So I think it's a matter of evaluating all the different discussions happening. So for example,
The max number that we can put in
programs that are being
23 to 1 is that we can go for a class size waiver.
we need to look at with that
Increase it to
administrators
23.
doing
Yes,
to help,
that'll increase the number of
improve it.
students
Because
in
it's
each
not that we don't want to help the kids or
classroom
offer those things to the kids.
we're gonna go
There's no
with-
participation.
But 20,
Why?
21
So we gotta
to
find
1
out
can
why.
happen
What
if we
is
don't
that
have
campus
the
doing
total
so
number of students
participation?
this would
plus
be
So it's kind of
It doesn't
like a
necessarily
trickle down
have to
effect,
be
right? Looking at the high level and looking at that. The
Meaning they can be
reality
lower
is
because
if
simply
you're
by
carrying, and we use cosmetology.
So the thing to remember
those
is
kinds of
like the
expensive
teachers,
programs
nurses,
to
librarians, and
maintain.
counselors, that's up to some kids' stuff. So the total
campus.
cost would actually be $1.5 million for 250.
more on top of the 7.
No, it's like,
Which was that?
the
The 250
teachers and
retention
nurses
was
Aside
already
from the four,
are
top two
inclusive
million.
of the step, so it's net.
Seven.
The number here is the net of the step. But the total cost for
I will tell you that it is.
or for 250
Right.
is
When I looked at that number, I
So
was,
one way to
We're
look at
getting
it,
there.
just so that.
We're not done yet.
So for right now,
Yeah,
you
smart.
increase the class size option, right? You're basically
6 to 8, that's
not
no
only
change
paying
in
off,
high
it's
school
gonna
level.
balance out because you're doing the step to the must-have.
So you're
You're
kind
kind
of
of
getting
getting
to
does that make sense? But we're not really impacting the deficit.
Or I'm sorry, that's not the
and you
question.
know, so you got teachers
I was asking,
So this next
why did it
one
only go
is
up
actually
353,000?
increasing, right?
Because
Plus, this
the
is
true
what
cost
the
is
teachers, nurses,
1.5.
librarians, and counselors, the step
Well, no,
increase.
because we already did the step up above.
Right,
Okay,
it's
so
like-
change
Move
it to
it,
no step?
obviously, it takes that amount out.
Oh, but if you change it to no step, it's gonna be overstated by 1.2.
My question is, so step is for the
And it's
teachers,
just,
and
it's,
are they
it
also
means
gonna
that
get
they're
the
getting
stipend?
zero as far as
If,
an
no,
increase, it's just
so
their
it's like
step
if you
increase that they're
chose
getting.
this,
What
the total
percentage
cost
does
of that
that
It varies, it's from $150
because it's net of the
to
step.
about
I don't know, it's like
Is that, I don't think that's adding up. Because how do you go, you're decreasing it by 70%.
So to make it easier,
Out of the 4.2.
if the step for a teacher is
you're not decreasing
$1,000,
So the next ones
and
are
we do a
right
retention
there.
payment of
What we want to
$250,
decrease
If
is
we do a retention
does the
payment,
teacher
right?
get
So
They
if
only
we
get
$1,250?
a different
No,
amount,
because
so
it's
you see
in
that
the
amount in it
1,000,
as
right?
well,
Right.
because it's
In the 1 million.
inclusive of the teacher
last year you
step.
spent $7 million.
So for those
Keep
teachers,
that.
for example, that get one.
Especially when you think about
it's
students.
Everybody
almost
would get
complete.
250.
The ones that have
Why are
the
we
680
spending
wouldn't
more
get an
on the
additional
steps?
I guess what I'm trying to
retention
understand
payment, because they're already
why
receiving
is it that
beyond
we're
250.
going back, because if you go to 100%,
So
it's
it's
gonna
adding
be zero.
because it's an
Unless we
additional
give
amount,
That means
right?
no
a retention that's higher than whatever the step
So
is.
Exactly, so it's like if you
So I don't know
do-
what you
that's
all wanna
exactly
see in
right. So if you
terms
go
of
to
That's
what
what
that
I-
looks like.
Well, you still, it's like.
it's a 7 million plus.
And what about
So
the step?
you remember, it's like from previous years, it's like
Zero?
that, it hovered at 6 million.
But yeah,
inclusive of the
guys,
step.
It's understood.
think about what just explained that, how that
So we're at 39.
So we're working on 7 million.
Do the step
So
increase.
I'm assuming with that, you're not gonna wanna consider a midpoint increase for everybody else, so we got it zero. Okay.
We're either
So
stay
here
out.
is decreasing the district's health care contribution currently.
Our goal is to stay at
This is
7 million.
575, that's paid monthly on behalf of the district. So you can reduce it in $10 increments, but know that the
Okay,
employee
so I
will
was
incur.
looking at it as
So
retention.
it's kind of.
That's how it's balanced, so if you
So
decrease the
basically,
district's
the cost of
contribution by
that is
$10, and this is monthly, so it would be
So
split
it's like
because
a
they're paid
3 million,
semi-monthly.
it's like, let's see.
And then the employee would pay $10 extra a month, and that gives you the $640.
It was
I
if
don't
I
know.
make a comment on that $10 reduction for district
Yeah, it's like,
contribution
it's
from
let me show you.
575 to 565, it only yields $642,000. The question is that worth it?
So if you
Political
look at
sense.
this.
To be honest with
this
you,
is
I don't know.
Increasing in staff.
To be honest with you,
the
unless you go down to
that's
like,
a midpoint
go to like
increase, so
$50.
this is the 250.
Yeah.
So what you'll see here.
$50 would generate 3.213
All
avoidance
these
costs.
amounts, so.
Does that make sense there? But that's so think about a $50 reduction, so it's 575 now, so the contribution only.
So
Because we
that,
have the amount of
correlates
subs.
to the.
Now, but remember, that doesn't mean you actually control, claims. You're only controlling
Without the
rate.
teachers,
you could have a spike in claims because of health
Without the
issues and different
teachers, it costs us $725.
we gotta solve that in the
And
we just want you to see the function of that situation. The more you
like that, hers
We don't fill any
So do you want to add anything here?
And I have a question on that.
725.
You know how we have the
And the reason it's a
different
little bit lower is
different
because
packages,
we're only
which
doing
one
the
is the
general
one
fund
that
for the
costs
staff.
us?
So there are
Employee
other
and
that are
employee,
funded
family.
So then,
when it comes to the
look
level of
at,
coverage, the specific level of coverage that is not contributing enough into the health fund is spouse and
lump sum payment inclusive of the step, the budget impact is $4.9 million.
if at $50 right there so far, what's your total budget at this?
What did it look like?
At the bottom.
That's
What is the
because
historical data of
Yeah,
how
we're not
much?
doing well yet.
No?
When did we
Yeah,
go
you
over
guys,
the
I'm gonna tell you, you guys are.
We're not doing it.
How many times have we gone over that?
Nice. They're about matching up. You guys are like 16 maybe.
It's because we haven't gotten to the positions yet. That's what they want to see.
You guys are big spenders. You know, in the casinos, this would be the $100 table. That's the $5 table.
it's like mine was over
So essentially double.
Very much so, yes.
So then,
Possibly that would help us.
Do we know if
And I think it's maybe very
so then,
to
this was an interesting second.
I know we gotta keep going.
Yeah, so I want to make sure that we're discussing like the budget
Where,
right now, other levels of coverage.
well, it's,
Wrong way.
wait, no, but, okay, so.
Oh,
So
decrease
we're
the district's,
decreasing
right, so it's not negative, it's how much we're gonna decrease.
Decreasing the district contribution,
that's per
but that
I would
would
like to see
result
if
in
they
an
did,
increase
let's say
for
the
the
main
So
What
it
percentage
ends the
stepped it up?
law
because I think they would
versus
understand,
this is
we're
$10
spending
per majority for
and I
that,
think
but
that's
it's
good,
the
but
increase that they have to show.
and maybe
And
not,
it results in,
Right.
you know, 640.
So maybe the substitution,
Right,
let's,
you know, in terms of
so let's try
not for us
something.
personally, I don't like
The
it.
question is, gosh, is that worth it? $10.
Right.
I mean, it's something,
Yeah, but some
but in the overall scheme of things, what does that do to the bottom line?
are all in
Just $10.
If we
This would
You're
reflect
still at
the entire,
by the way, you're in the same second.
it would be 20%.
That middle table is helping because they're way behind.
So the one thing to consider is, it's like we do make a commission, and you know what, it's like,
Once we have an idea of what
but what I want you to see is we do have that
Hi, thank you, Maria.
With a 20,
and you saw it there, it's like that is.
We're not going anywhere.
It's like,
I'm sorry.
Okay, we're just having conversations. Hopefully we'll revisit. So for the transfer to the healthcare fund, right now we're anticipating 12.
and
It depends on
That's what we're slated to do right now.
If it's a
So,
class that's
about $10
but,
want to get into it, and your class is ginormous.
again, this is an ideal world. Let's say we don't want to, right? We don't want to put anything, because that really puts us over. Because we don't want to do anything, then it's about putting a plan together to avoid that from happening. So
That's the reality, so I'm just wondering.
I know, we're going the wrong way.
So that number should actually reflect
So,
even higher.
I don't know what you want to reflect there.
Yes,
Go back to the
because if we do it higher, then that means less teachers.
So do you want to leave that
that
as
was the idea.
But I think that's what you're getting to, right? Is that even though that
I
we
think
were already
we all
higher, the
agree.
ratio is let's just keep it even.
And then,
30
so,
students per
Now, I
teacher.
do have numbers for you in this
Theoretically, we
case,
should
in
be
the
looking
next
at a
one.
number
So
the
teacher
way it is,
position.
as if it was a 30-to-1 ratio, not a 20, not even a 25-to-1 ratio.
So here, you're gonna put negative 100, negative 100.
So that's the thing, that if a school is allotted, let's say 50 FTEs, and within those 50 FTEs,
So
they have
it looks
to
like for the
have
teachers,
four
it's
for
gonna be
every
like,
single grade level that they have, which middle school would be 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then 9th through 12th in the high schools. So all the four teachers, for the amount of students that they have in every grade level.
Okay.
Okay,
Paras. So
fine
these are
arts
positions
to
that
offer
are
for every single one of
currently
them
vacant that
CTE,
we
some of the
can
CTE courses in there. So see, that's where it kind of.
so not fill them. So there's a cost savings on this. So this is kind of what Mr. Castellano was referencing.
So that actually.
So paraprofessional, it's minus 30.
Right.
And auxiliary, it's minus 25. And this is just to give you a general idea of what these positions cost. So a teacher costs approximately $73,000, and then you have the formula for para and auxiliary. So right now we're at, go down, Renee. 28. We're making progress.
Exactly.
So as you can see,
So with
yes,
that-
we know we have to cut staff, but it's not just staff.
Now, do we have the ability, when you do that, that means that none of the vacancies is left with a substitute or with, you have the ability to absorb with another.
Right.
That's what I was trying to find out. How
Now,
hard
right
is it
there,
to
the
really?
special education clerks, I think there's a proposal to bring some back, so if you put 13.
So we go conservative, 94.5.
I apologize.
We're gonna lose the game, Mr. Castillo.
I'm taking you away from the game.
I'm very competitive.
We're losing Miss Macias.
We're losing right
We're
now.
losing Miss Macias.
I guess I'm trying to.
Okay.
I mean, I guess
So
I'm trying,
kind
like
of
how
to
he
your
was
point,
saying, it was
Mr.
like 18
Castellano,
months.
if
Like,
you notice,
I mean, are
under
we
the
gonna get to
teacher,
97%
paraprofessional, and
this year?
auxiliary positions,
You know,
those are the positions we would cut, that we have, that we could eliminate.
I wanna play
So
conservative
about
here,
100
okay?
teacher vacancies, 30 paraprofessional vacancies, and 25 auxiliary vacancies.
And just for clarification, minus 100, that would still be in the 22 to 1, 24 to 1.
That's not, that's with
This
the
is
current
in
formula
combination.
as we have it.
Nobody loses their job.
That's,
So, I mean,
that's
we've made
kind of
headway.
what we're trying to cut without going to that extreme.
So
if you
different
scroll
numbers,
down,
like,
Renee,
so
we're at
this is the 15th.
29.
And we
So,
still
I've done that. And that's a good point, but I can tell you right now, some of those paraprofessionals and stuff include people here. Because like I can tell you in HR, we have vacancies, you know, Renee has vacant, in finance there's vacancies, and we're not filling those.
So now, harder to control that.
Yeah, and I know we don't want to lay people.
Right.
But I think the tendency can still control because I mean one of the complaints that I would hear from like from parents, especially like in the elementary level, was like the uniforms.
We've given
So when you loosen it up,
So
it
there's
makes you know
legalities, like anything.
it made it easier for the parents. Like okay, I can just send little Miguel to school just like that. I mean, I don't know if it's unfortunate in some certain circumstances, but I mean at least the kid's there and it's still
Once you
learning.
issue the contract, they become, especially if they're a chapter 21 contract, they're entitled to that due process. It's more complicated.
Every media interview that I've done, they always ask, is there anything else you'd like to add? These are the things that stand
We did for.
Just by one, made it even to fifth grade.
Where else can we cut?
Right, it does, it does. I think that time invested
You and I
is
agree
worth
that
it.
here it should say, you know,
There's a lot of
still put
factors
that
that play
administrative.
into
What did you leave it at?
FTEs, there's also,
you have, I know you guys
certain, you have an LTE count, that should also be in there through attrition. I know that just recently,
you know,
right,
it's
you know,
straight up.
some positions
Without us trying.
But
Was that part
here's
of
where we're at.
the problem that you had as far as that you already saved? Or
I
not
don't
yet?
think that's you're referencing some of the
We did.
For transparency, what the district is doing top down.
But if you actually do something with
Because that was
Nervous about the
I
97.
think those numbers after what I looked at, they said it can be almost honestly irrelevant.
Well, this middle table is a high dollar table because
Anything else?
Yeah.
They're going the wrong way.
you guys got about 10, 12 minutes.
Because we're already sticking a bunch of kids. Even when I remember going, you know, 20 years ago, it was, I mean, I had the classes, were the core classes, I remember having 30, 32, you know, English
I actually
classes.
did this activity with
That's
principals.
what I thought I had heard.
I also did this with
Step
communities.
increase?
Yeah, I invited the communities. And I also did it with communities. These numbers are your numbers.
In the budget,
They're not.
and if we want to.
And I'm doing this, yeah, they're your numbers. We, Susan, and these guys all change the numbers, that template that I
It would be an additional 1.2
They change it.
if
This is not
if
your
we do a
allows
step
you to
increase. The only thing that I
Your
would
proposal
like
is to work with
to
this
say on that
individual.
is it's only
Absolutely.
They need to see what their substitute is.
Oh, yeah.
They need to see what a,
So look at what this table came up with.
And that's where, you know, I've always told you, I
Yeah, it's like
agree.
this one.
I do
So it's either
It's all or nothing.
No, it's like,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
just
yeah,
safety, for the sake of consistency.
And let's go back to
And if you were to even do that, and the district says we need to come back and make an amendment, that's what the amendment. Don't give them the credit card with 5,000 limit. Give them a credit card with $250. If I give my kids a credit card with 5,000 limits, you know what they'll do? They'll spend it all the way up. All the way up. Yeah.
Midpoint increases, if that's something y'all wanna look at.
Not if it's not unless we're required.
For sure. Okay.
Are we winning the game?
You guys don't wanna have any revenue increases. We need to have revenue increases now.
So this is how it looks if we add the 13 going to 15. So it's going back.
12.
12, and that's not,
But it's rented down to 25.
All right, making progress. You're making progress.
Those
All
are
right.
positions that we would carry for
No, you're doing well.
double count.
We have 13 minutes, 13 minutes.
How many more to consider?
13.
If we were to consider, because I mean, hitting them with 20 still.
I'm taking notes, Mr. Garcia, to bring all that to the table.
Time to
He wants the down, up code.
One year I calculated from my board. I decided to cut all helmets
say that
on the football team. I have 5 high schools. And I cut all helmet costs. You know why? To make it 10.
To see what it is.
I said, listen, let's quit talking about athletics. I say it actually costs, you actually get more out of it by cutting all programs. You spend more money.
What does the return on our investment look like if we
So, once again, this is a way, I did this exercise with community members.
our health program, like with the
They got to see how the
we
board
have
has
to see another
struggled.
doctor, we see one
It's very
down here
difficult.
in the valley, and then we leave one up here, and then
Answers are
we're
very
able to add another one.
I need
And
your.
we were able to just say leave it for
So
at least
with the
one of them
Vader, I
open
know
for
it's
24
different.
hours.
However, if we, and
What
right now we
would
went
that look like? Would it
bottom
be
line,
beneficial
no
for us?
increases, no step
So
ladder,
that's
no
a
going up
really good
for
question.
our
It would be a
employees.
matter of us
If we were
looking
to
into
pass a Vader, could that money
visits
go
we have had
to
Yeah,
the step
yeah,
increase
so-
to?
visit or a family
So
care
I would ask the board to adopt a resolution that any revenue generated by
give you
the,
a number right now.
can only go to certain things.
Can it be done? Yes. Because I can tell you that the clinic, the Emily Clinic,
But that way it's voter adoption, that way.
The voters would know
they
that it's not,
decide
I even
if they-
said in my school district, because we passed a 7 cents Vader in my school district. I even put there that he would not go to compensate superintendent's salary. I even put it in there just to let them know that he would not go to any central office costs, any of that nature. He would only go to teacher compensation, or in that school district case, class size were 2 or 3. Because they were getting so many
Is that already
students.
included in the cost of running the
We
clinic?
didn't change.
part of the health.
And we continue at that 90-some
But that
cents.
would be their.
It's very difficult.
That would be
Several
their.
years.
It
would be on them.
would be on them.
You're right.
Your tax
But you're right, Mr. Gray, it's very difficult. And I'm not gonna tell you that it's gonna be easy. We're gonna go over a timeline with you.
hindsight, right?
You know what the
Because
cost
it
is?
is, we should have increased
Correct.
that voter
But then I
all the
look
way
at how
up
much
because
Has to
on
go to
the,
November.
we'd be in a
on
better
the other end,
position.
how much are we gonna have to transfer
means you
to
had
the
to call
healthcare?
it
So
by
we
this
end up
time.
saving more.
You don't have a lot
Instead
of
of having
time.
to transfer,
But
can we
that's,
still have
that's
not
how I
a
get it.
net
If you,
gain
if you
of,
miss
I don't know, let's
this
just say $1 million,
cycle,
because
then
we
you have to wait
invested
until
in
next month.
the employee health
There's
clinic there.
advantages going now because of President
So,
Joe.
you know, is it better to put up the money up front and then get the
A
return?
lot of school
actually
districts are right now
see
going
a
out for
true,
Vader.
I
They've already
guess,
done it. Many
it'll
schools have
offset
done
and it can create a surplus.
And so many are gonna come out.
I guess that's what I'm trying to
Many are
do.
gonna come out and do it. In this area, you might be the first ones to do it. I understand that to be true.
building over at Socorro High School. There's really no
Go 5?
invest in building something. There's already a building
No, and
that
again,
has
it's a voter decision, because he said that 5 were the golden, right, and then
Well,
after that were the power. These are the ones that gets the most.
100% enrollment. Right, for the rankings they.
who's going to be mandating that. Will Dr. Nevares be
Oh, I
willing to
have
extend
not heard
her
of that.
license to another
Each kiddo
practitioner?
got a gift card.
Would we
I
need to
know,
bring
but
another
we were trying to be
practitioner?
conservative.
So how that's going to be staffed?
That'll be
That's-
additional cost.
That will be additional cost, right. But to your point, would that
Right,
in
I
turn save us more money to
COVID changed everybody's
Part of it too
perspective.
is customer service. If you figure out, I mean, we had customer service for our transportation department, for our high school secretaries, for operations.
4 million was what
And they find some of these
cost
work orders
this
now
past year,
because they
right?
learned, they got coached on how to do it, and they saw how important
saved.
So, and it's not gonna happen in 1 year.
Because we were on track
And the year
to
before that
achieve
was
that.
9.
And I think that it just these people, you know, it's like because if we set the bar high, it's like.
The average is about, I guess, 6
We'll
million
get
that we're having to
higher
fork
than
out.
Good things happen by
Over the last 3
On a
years.
low year, it's
The thing
4, on
is
a high year, it's 9, so
if we
yeah.
set it for 97, I just think Ms. Macias and Mr. Castellano, we have the foundation. We know what we've done in the past
So
and
if
what
you're
works.
saying,
And it has
the
worked.
goal is
I've
97,
seen
more
it.
than likely we're gonna hit
And I think
this
if we go back to some of those
96.5,
grassroots
but I don't think
and
it changes, you know,
decrease new strategies, I'm not saying that we
Our
cannot
budget
do that, but
expenses
I mean, improve or be better.
Because we've been there.
But I think it's possible.
suggested to us a few months ago doing all in lump sum. So you can, do you see what
I
I'm saying?
agree.
Like,
So
it's
for the
just
next 4 years,
Look
do
at
they
it
have
this way,
considered
because the expenses is also increased.
I'm sorry?
I agree, 100%. It's fine as long as it's part of the plan.
All the way down to the total,
While you're thinking that overall, over the last 4.
non-payroll
So now go
expenditures.
back, cause I
Way
wanna
down,
win the
further
day,
down, I'm
Tricia.
sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. I think.
So these are set.
go down,
short
I
10.
think-
So
I
that's
think the
why they
other
should have-
piece is if we do add the
Just keep going down.
administrative piece, cause we do have,
So our
we
total
were
expenses
for many years,
Use
491,
alkaline, I'm sorry, being
Point seven,
for our structure
right, the
as
same
far as
thing
that
is
we
right there.
were
That's our
lean.
budget number.
And I think,
That's the target.
or I know that if we
I
go back
guarantee
to
you
that
that
again and not, everybody has to go through attrition to get, we just close those
Some
positions. Same thing, you know,
left on
given
the
that
table.
we, and I think it was between 38 and
Some.
39, just
A
or
whole
with
lot.
that decrease enrollment,
But
that line
admin
item, so
certain
you
things
close those positions, we don't fill them, but we, I know that the staff
set
pretty
it,
soon will have,
and
they are allotted.
as
And
we
then
go
not just
through
that,
the
that we're
year,
constantly showing that
we
for the
can
community, it's not, so for
get
example, right now we
strict on
have
some
classroom sizes, we're also
teacher,
touching,
improve throughout the
you
year.
know, the resignations for the school year
Through the year.
thus far.
Again,
So
not a
if
whole
we
lot.
put 100
It'll be a
there,
drop in
if
the
we don't
bucket,
replace
but we
any of
can.
them,
So if we don't
that's how much,
hit the 97, there's no reason we can't say, let's
if we,
try our best
how do we know?
to
If
hit
we
it.
replace
So we
them.
have to see if they're, you know,
If we hit
come back to
96.7,
you know, or they
Not to say, but they come and
Some of
they
we
come
have
back
had some of those
by
conversations.
the way,
because
we're never
if we
gonna get
have
closer to
100,
97.
and we
some of
do
those
replace
If we
them,
don't set
we
it
do
to
replace all
97
those
right now.
teachers. That's
Oh,
how
that's what it is, okay, we're
Correct.
replacing them.
Yes, we're replacing them. So for paraprofessionals, so far we have 30.
Evaluating.
So if we don't replace them.
Yeah, let's go and start wrapping up our conversations. We got about 3 minutes left. If you want to start wrapping up the conversation.
We have to look at so see how if teachers leave and we replace them, then that's.
You're like, wait a minute, go back.
So paraprofessionals right
I
now, we have
understand, like
30
you said, the community, but I think,
Let me introduce you, I'm sorry. It would be.
I'm gonna tell you like this.
That's what I thought.
Yes, I can honestly tell you, I grew up in this district. I was about 21 years old.
There you go, that's why I was like, wait, why did
Started
you?
as a high school
And
as
that's replacing,
receptionist,
replacing
and I've had
every single one
opportunities
of
to
them
come
would
in.
cost us 7.3.
I live in this
Closing
district
all
and
of them
everything.
would-
Yes,
would
I
give
have
be a
benefited
savings
from
of
a lot of things that
7.3.
this board has
Now we
approved.
have 30 paraprofessionals
My stance
that
at this
have
point is now
resigned.
it's my turn
Can you
to
elaborate
return
what
that loyalty. To
paraprofessionals?
return the
So like
loyalty
any
and
of our
make those
spec
hard decisions and stand
instructional
by whatever
aides,
decisions are made. To save the
clerks,
district.
secretaries.
That's the way.
How many of those are sped? Because I wanna make sure that we stay compliant with sped especially.
Have those numbers broken down, and right now we have like
Home around this area. I don't
30 overall
I
in
think they're gonna do
that
what's best for
particular
their staff.
category.
But that is a priority in making sure.
Like to the point that we go to say
But
96.
sped,
Earlier you did it.
how many do we have auxiliary?
You're right.
Auxiliary, we
so
have
not
25.
Like you said.
This is
But I think down in their heart, they'll say.
On the
"This is, you know, what,
paraprofessional,
they're
let's just say
trying to
10
do
or
the best for my
you're not
kids."
gonna, because
I don't think
I,
there's 10, I'll be honest with you, if just,
25?
if
so like
that.
25?
So we do 25, that's, if you put 1 minus 1, if you don't mind, put 1. Where? On the 25, just.
So what I'm saying is you can mix one.
No, just minus 1.
Take off the 25, just go 10.
Right.
So that's how much.
That's how much they make.
That's how much that was.
But
This is where, this is why you guys get paid $100.
the teacher positions, I mean, I agree with what Mr. Beretta said about, I mean, paraprofessionals were sped.
It's the attendance, right there.
Teacher positions.
Customer service, they stay.
But you still gonna be over, in this scenario, over 12 million.
That's something that, can I see it one more time?
I do have a question.
Staff, BP and
No,
stuff,
go back up to the yellow right here.
don't touch it.
This one is to
And leave the stipends in there. Don't touch it. Leave the electronics. Don't touch it.
to bring it
None of
back.
that is, they're all included. Because if you do
It's 2.1. I'm just worried about, I know that we currently have that class size. Unless we could cap that those core courses do not pass the 35 or 37. It's just whenever you put across the board formula, those are the classes that get.
Board members do not get paid. It's volunteer.
Once you start up a little more, I can start for yourself.
We should put a line in there, Mr. Kim, for board salaries and for it to say 0.
So honestly, we are monitoring and on a daily basis. So student registrations,
Honestly, think the plan is to
we're
bring
down
you several
1,833
the plan design because
from
it's not just the
projected
premiums, it's the entire.
So we projected
So
47,000.
And that one is till January, right?
1,500 students in elementary. And I'm going to tell you, mainly that number is
We have
pre-K, pre-K4, and kinder and first grade.
Thank you, sir.
Are done. I think what we want to do at this point is we're going to adjust the screens so that everybody can see each other's work and see who won the balance the budget game. So, and if we want to have one of the board trustees maybe come up to the board and talk a little bit about their work and some of the things that they prioritized. Do we want to start off on this end here?
So I'll as a, I guess as a recovering finance person, right? I want to start with the bottom line. So what we were able to achieve was a deficit of just under 13 million. Remember, keep in mind, we're not going to overcome this deficit in 1 year. It's going to take a multi-year approach, but we need to take steps now to get us there. And I think some of the things that we discussed, remember, these just are ideas. It's an activity so that we understand what the impact is of the decisions that we make and we see the numbers. So that's where we ended up. Ms. Olson, please, let's go all the way back to the top. We're not going to be able to recover from this without a TRE. State funding has not recovered, so we allowed for 5 cents coming from a VA TRE. As far as student enrollment goes, we accepted the demographer's estimate of minus 300. We accepted that as the value. We don't accept it as given. There's lots of things that we can try and do to make that input, but if that's the information the demographers are giving us, then that's the number that we're going to start with and try and move from there. As far as attendance goes, we set it at 97%. I know we're at 94%. We've been at 94% since COVID entered the arena. But we're not in COVID anymore. We're not fighting COVID anymore. COVID isn't as aggressive as it was. What we need to do is realize how important attendance is, because if you're not present, you're not learning. So we need to get back up and improve upon that 96.5, 96.6, 96.7 we were at. We can get there. We all pitch in to help, right? Including our parents. We go a little further down. Up already? Same thing with the substitute options. Mr. Guerra asked a question. What was our substitute budget before this last year? And it was a lot different. So try and understand what happened this year that did not happen in the previous years and try and make that impact. It doesn't mean we're doing away with the substitute budget. It just means we're not going to increase it. If we're going to improve student attendance, we need to improve teacher attendance as well. We made no changes in pre-K through 4th classroom size or 5th, but we did align 6th through 12th with the 5th grade staffing ratio, which is 25:1. We included the step in a $250 retention payment. Remember, the step is inclusive of that. Other things that we changed, we allowed a $50 decrease, monthly decrease to the district's healthcare contribution. Were presented information earlier that said we're going to require an $8 million transfer. That means aside from what the healthcare fund is right now, we're going to need an $8 million transfer there, so we accounted for it. And then we set the teacher attrition positions at the information that we already have on hand. Okay, that gets us all the way down to that just under $13 million deficit.
If I could point out in column J, we actually reduced the percent of payroll to 88% from 90, 91. And that's pretty significant.
Thank you. Vasquez?
Thank you, Mr. Nahara. And I just want to make the disclaimer again to those watching this. These are not, we're not taking action on any of this. This is just part of the game to get us thinking about the proposed budget for next year. All right, let's go with this group.
Okay. I'll just start off. I'm opposite of Michael. I do believe we have to address a balanced budget for this coming fiscal year, especially if we're going to ask for a tax increase. There's no way that's going to pass a taxpayer and say, we want 5 more cents from your property values, and still, well, we're negative 10. Yeah, we can't do that. We have to give them a balanced budget. We've talked about options. The number they gave me, we went negative 600 on the kids. The number I've been giving is a lot more scarier, but we need to see when the actual number. So, yeah, we're not going to get it at 97%. Hossa was breathing down our back and said, you're going to get there, so we have to get there. Yeah, customer service kept popping up. The only way we bring this district forward out of where we're at and show the people that we're going to be on the right track is customer service. And every week we have people up here speaking, telling my kid's civil rights, my kid this, my kid that. I don't get services. We need to change that. We need to be positive. We need to be on the positive side of that. Realistically, I don't think we're going to reduce the substitute budget just because we can't hire teachers. And I think that's a problem everywhere. So we reduced it by 30%. Talking to this thing. Where are we at? We did increase class sizes. I thought we did the 6th one. No. I thought we did those 2. Okay, well, we got 1 up here. We saved $2 million. Well, and we did not give no increases in pay. Scroll. Well, that's where we're at. We didn't address the healthcare, did we? Oh, at $20, but that still needs to be looked at in depth. Do we look at another carrier? I don't know. Maybe somebody can give us a better rate. We can do that. And
what's our bottom line number? What did we?
Well, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
All right, we're at 10 million in the hole.
All right. Thank
Well,
you.
there's still a lot of work. There's a lot of work.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is just for demonstrative purposes only. All right. Who's going to be presenting here?
There are similarities between ours and both of the other groups. For the tax rate election, we did look, the highest we could go was 12 cents, so we split the difference and went 6. Student enrollment, we didn't want to be overconfident, and so we went with 100. And the attendance right now, we're at 94.5, and so we bumped it up a 0.5%. We were trying to be safe. Didn't want to get our hopes up. Substitute options, we were discussing the increase from the past 2 years to this year and ways that administration is working to help us with that. So we went with a 30%. like Maribel and Mr. Castellanos, we did toy with going 25-1 on the 6th to 8th and 9th to 12th. We used Ms. Gardea's knowledge that a lot of times those classes are already at 30-1. And so, you know, and that affects our teacher ratio. And so we dropped that again. So we were going backwards on that one. We did not do the step increase or retention payment. We just felt like it was to be fair across the board. Nobody gets anything this year. Transfer to healthcare fund. Sorry, no. The district healthcare contribution, we went $10. I still think we could go 20, but we were playing with that one. The transfer to healthcare fund, we went $4 million, realizing that we are going to need more than that. But on the attrition, we went with the numbers that we had, but making sure that we are providing teachers on the teacher vacancies, the core classes that we have to have teachers for wouldn't be included in that. And at the bottom, we're at 16.
Hey, give yourself a big round of applause. This is actually really good. I would tell you that a lot of school districts struggle with trying to explain how the budget works. And it's a very difficult process. It's very complicated because of the fact that there are so many variables involved in it. And as you've been sitting on the dais, listening to your staff talk about these issues, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. Now, earlier in the evening, you did a values alignment. But the NGT process, Dr. Hinosa kind of facilitates you with. So, well, that becomes, well, so what? Now, this is where sort of the work begins. It is very difficult. And I got to tell you, your staff has done a fantastic job trying to figure this out, just as with you. So the discussion that you've had here in the last 43 minutes is a discussion that I'm hearing constantly by your staff members, to the point of argument, discussions, and so forth, because it is not an easy thing. So part of the thing is, what are some of the things that we need to look forward to? What are some consensus based upon your values alignment that you talked about earlier? And this is where you want to give directions, opinions, further opinions, or even clarification questions about some of these things. Because I think in some sense, you want to know, as Mr. Nahara mentioned, well, what happened to the sub-issues? So we need to give you some more information about that. Because whatever is working back in the day, we need to bring those things back. Obviously, there's going to be some issues with attendance, so you need to work those things out. But once again, this is an activity. Once again, it is a training activity. As it was mentioned, this is not anything firm, but it gives you an understanding about where things are at this particular point, and give those.
A couple of things to land the plane for tonight. You don't have to make any big decisions tonight, but hopefully you've got a new paradigm about how you're thinking about solving this problem. And like I said to the whole group earlier, budgets are linear. You got revenues and expenditures. Don't focus on things you can't control. Don't count on the state bailing you out. These elections have proven that that's not coming. Now, if they want vouchers that badly, there may be some kind of deal, but that's not till the next session. And so you can't count on that money. But there are things that you can do something about and start doing something about. And, you know, democracy's ugly, but it's the best thing going. And most people support public education. Most people went to traditional public education. And I think a whole lot of people are going to vote in November. I'm just wondering who's not going to go vote in November. And yes, you have some history you have to overcome. But yes, you have a lot of assets. And your assets are your students and your staff. And you can't talk your way out of things you behave yourself into, and everybody's watching. And if you make some tough decisions right now, it gives you a fighting chance. But elections don't happen by accident. People who support me don't vote. Young people, educators, and Latinos. That's who supports me. They don't vote. Who votes? you got to know who votes. And there are ways to find out who votes and what they would vote for and what would they not vote for. And you have, and I'm not trying to sway you either way, but I want you to keep all options open as you make these big decisions. I'm very proud of you. Watching you work tonight, you trusted the process. I always say, if you're working on something important, you involve the stakeholders, you follow a process, and the product will take care of itself. And this is not a supermajority, this is a majority. But everybody's voice is important, no matter how you spin this. So I was very proud to be part of this, and I'm glad they recorded it because my mom was not going to believe it. That you guys are working like Team Socorro. I'll turn it back over to the board president, whoever. Was there anything else we need to do tonight? Okay. Okay.
Couple more things on there.
I'd like for us to go back up
That's what.
Oh, that's what you're gonna do?
Yes.
Perfect.
So the end part of this process is that, do you want to move back to the dais?
Yeah, because if we
Okay.
can't, if we don't, then
Yes.
they're not gonna be able to hear us.
So then we'll take another recess.
Minutes.
Transition.
2-minute transition.
Got it. So I'm certain that there were a lot of questions that came up, and I wanted to give the board an opportunity to provide any comments, feedback, and definitely some direction on where we would like to see this going towards. Mr. Nahara?
Offer, I have comments, but.
Mr. Nava, yes. When it comes to the budget, there's always questions to ask, and I think it's very hard for myself to even understand the budget. So by doing this game, it was easy, but it was better to understand what 1% to 3% will make in our budget. And we got to make some hard decisions, but at least understanding the budget is one thing, but actually pinpointing every aspect of it, we could see the increase and how it's going to help us understand the budget. So thank you all.
There?
I do agree with Mr. Guerra. The budget is a very complex process, and I think one of the priorities that we were discussing earlier is, and I'm forgive me, I don't remember quite the verbiage, but it was about a new reality and kind of understanding this new reality. And I think this process kind of solidified that for me, because the decisions we have to make really are going to be difficult, but they're going to be in the long term what's best for our district, even though they may appear to be somewhat, I don't know, opposite of what we're used to doing, but it's a new reality. So I think the decisions we have to make are going to be tough, but with good information. So thank you. I really did enjoy the game, even though we came in third.
She's not mad.
There was only 3 teams.
Ms. Macias?
Yes, just thank you. What I truly valued is that multiple or the entire staff were on the same page. Everybody had the same information. Everybody was sharing. And not just that, when we asked questions, I could hear that the answers were very consistent throughout. And with that, that means that if you're asked at Walmart or at Super or wherever you're at, we're talking the same language. So it was very easy to understand. It was transparent. And one thing that I truly liked is the understanding is that you focus on what's important, or you focus on the big stuff and not the little stuff. I think there were examples that were given that truly we could focus on. You saw that we would throw out all these things where everybody's trying to help. For example, somebody mentioned water rights. Hey, you have water rights. You could save money that way. And I value everybody's trying to save money, but by doing this activity, it truly showed where we could truly balance our budget and what we have to do. So truly value the experience and what we went through.
Castellano?
We know what we have to do. We don't like the answers. It's going to be tough, but we can do it. I'd like to thank Dr. Kim and Dr. Hinojosa for their insight and pointing us in the right direction. There's some pain ahead in the district, but we can get through it, and we have to. And it's for the children. We have to do this for the children. And we can't afford to lose the district in the process. I don't believe in kicking the can down the road. We can fix this, and we took the first step today.
Ms. Nahida?
I would like to thank all of our staff. It was very rewarding tonight when we were setting our priorities, and the board's top priorities aligned with cabinet's top priorities, and so we're all on the same page, working toward the same goal, and I love that, because when we come together as a team, we can put our district on the right path. As for our exercise, it was very eye-opening and rewarding to see how small changes and even large changes, it was rewarding to see the impact that it has, and we hadn't seen it from that perspective before. But I want to thank you all so much for all of your hard work. We could not do this without you.
Dr. Kim, Dr. Hinojosa, I appreciate the insight, especially doing it and displaying it for the public to see, so that they're also have a better understanding, not just them, but us as well. So thank you for that insight. I've always said that I'm my own worst critic, but in my opinion, I think that this was great. This was excellent. I know that there's still more to be done, and I look forward to even getting into those wants that are still out there that need to be addressed, because even if you total those, it might come out to $2-3 million still in saving. That's an additional $2 or $3 million that we can still save, But like I said, I'm my own worst critic, and to me, it's like I want to look at everything. I really want to see everything where we can make a cut. And I understand that these were the biggest cuts that need to be made, or that not that need to be, but this was the examples that, where we can potentially make the big impact the most and significantly. But other than that, I think it was very good, even more insightful and eye-opening, so that we can address this. And at the end of the day, like I've told many people, kids are the heart of this district of education, and the teachers are the brains of the body. Any of those two fail and we don't support them, the whole body fails. So we just got to make sure that we have them in sight and focus and take care of those two.
I too am very appreciative of completing this exercise. I will tell you that I was relieved when I saw the alignment between the cabinet and the board priorities, and was also relieved when I saw that it didn't take us that long. I mean, we all know what the priorities are, even as we went across the board 3 different times. We know what the priorities are. We know where we need to focus, and we know what we need to do. So that was a sense of relief, because as hard as it is, we all know where we need to focus and the next steps that we need to take. Absolutely, the budget exercise was very revealing. It was very educational. I'm aware that in both healthcare and education, salaries are a larger portion of the expenses, and the number that I traditionally hear typically is 80%. Ours right now is 90%. And so that was very revealing to me. When you think that 90% of our budget is in salaries and we need to reduce that deficit, we need to start making decisions to impact that number. And it doesn't mean that we do it at the detriment of the students or the education that they receive, or to harm the district. It just means that we need to be more insightful of the decisions that we make and how they make an impact, and this exercise revealed that. For example, attendance rate, average daily attendance. We were almost at 97 in 2019. Since then, we've dropped to 94%. That's 3%, but that's a substantial difference to the amount of funding that the district receives. And if we can set that target, pursue it, and achieve it, then that's a change that we can control, right? If we can increase enrollment or the number of students that we lose and get them to come here as well, that's an impact there also. But it was just very revealing to see all the variables that we do have, some control over, that we can change, and then to understand the impact. There's some things that we can change, as an example, catering, parent-teacher nights, etc. We can cut travel out for everything, but that's not going to make a substantial difference. It is by trying to do things that I previously mentioned, that's where we're going to make an impact. And those are the decisions that we're going to have to, explore, analyze, understand, and then make. So thank you very much again to everybody involved for the activity.
If I may, I agree with everything everybody said regarding the thank yous and all the hard work it took to get today's activity in place. But I also want to thank our Alice Ramos and her technology team. We've never done this setup before, and we asked for this challenge, and they met it, and it turned out really nice. So thanks to their team as well.
So at this time, are there any questions that y'all would like feedback on as we're progressing through the budget process? Are there any directions in which you'd like to pursue, or do you have any comments on that part, sir? Anybody?
Notes when we were at the
I was going to say, maybe we can, if we think of something else, maybe we can email you.
Yes.
I know that you took notes at our table. I don't know.
And I'm sure they did at the other tables, and I'll make sure I get with these individuals.
And I think, Mr. Kim, you need to patent this game immediately. And then maybe since it's our idea to help you patent it, you can help the deficit. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there, sir.
So his former CFO will fight him on that one, because Crystal has a very big hand in that. They've been very helpful in identifying not just how to do the budget part of it, but how to get the information out in a way that is understandable. And they did great, and I appreciate their help. Thank you. So the last part we have, and I won't go over every part of it, is information on the election, if that is something that we want to pursue. I have highlighted the areas that involve either district or board involvement, including July 5th, efficiency auditor selected. If we are going to be doing a VATRE, we would need to have an efficiency audit done. The board would adopt the tax rate and call for the VATRE, voter-approved tax rate election, no later than August 19th. The auditor will complete the efficiency audit on October 4th, and we will also post it online and do a public meeting on that audit. And then election day would be November 5th. And I do have rows available in case there are any specific questions about a VATRE. Otherwise, we can also get those questions emailed. We can email them to the bond council as well. So we will have further discussions on that as we near it. And that concludes our presentation for this evening. Does anybody have any last minute questions? Thank you.
All right then. Thank you, Ms. Perez. With there being no more agenda items for the discussion in this workshop, we are adjourned. The date is June 3rd, 2024, and the time is 8:25.